Well, a rather lengthy informal meeting. It got started late. It didn't start till 4:30 today due to other commitments earlier on in the day. So now we are getting ready about 5 minutes from now to start tonight's Richmond City Council meeting. So good evening once again. I'm Dick Harmon. Welcome to our first meeting of the month of July. We have 21 items on the agenda, 14 on consent, 4 appointments and reappointments, and 3 regular agenda items. Lots of conversation, lots of comments. Who knows what will happen? Well, let's run through the agenda quickly and see if we can bring some perspective to this. Item number 1, Ordinance 2013-80, special use at 2501 Monument Avenue. That paper is being withdrawn and new paper will be submitted. Item 2, Ordinance 2013-96. This is concerning reports to Council on Economic Development and Lease Matters. That's been continued till September 9th. Item 3, Ordinance 2013-111. This is setting aside parking spaces in the underground deck for City Council use for its operations. This one's being amended and continued until our next meeting on the 22nd of July. Item 4, Ordinance 2013-112, special use at 2623 East Broad for the purpose of converting an existing main building for use as 3 dwelling units, etc. That's being continued until the 9th of September. Item 5, this is Ordinance 2013-124. This assigns polling places and relocates and establishes a new polling place for Precinct 610. That stays on consent. Item 6, Ordinance 2013-125, and this is concerning precinct boundaries for precincts 503 and 505. That stays on consent agenda. Item 7, Ordinance 2013-131, issuing general obligation public improvement bonds in the maximum amount of $11.25 million. This will finance the cost of school projects and general capital improvement projects for the city. That stays on consent. Item 8, Ordinance 2013-132, and this one extends the deadline for compliance with requirements of an ordinance which closes public use and travel a portion of Virginia Street. That stays on consent. Item 9, Ordinance 2013-135. This closes a portion of right-of-way as the 8th Street connector in the block bounded by South 8th Street, etc. This is for the new building they want to build. This one stays on consent. Item 10, Ordinance 2013-140. And this reappropriates $4.4 million for the fiscal year budget. And this puts money, about $1.6 million, for enterprise resource planning to provide for rapids expenses and other items, and that one will be continued till the 22nd of July. Item 11, Ordinance 2013-141. This is concerning bus fares, and that gets continued till the 22nd of July, our next meeting. Item 12, Ordinance 2013-142, and this amends, this is also concerning bus fares, amends and reordains City Code 110-136 for the purpose of increasing the care service fare. That gets continued till our next meeting. Item 13. This one is the one I don't think will face any opposition. This one, Resolution 2013-R153, dispenses with regular meetings of council during the month of August. That stays on consent. Item 14, Resolution 2013-R154. This appoints Jean V. Capel to the position of City Clerk. She's been the interim City Clerk, and now they want to make this a permanent position for her. That stays on consent. Appointments, reappointments. Let's see. Item 15 appoints Marcellus Plummer, member of the Richmond Behavioral Health Authority. Item 16 appoints Trip Pollard, member of the Green City Commission. Item 17 appoints Jeffrey Sadler, member of the City Planning Commission. And item 18 reappoints Vivian Heidemann, member of the Personnel Board of the City. Now don't forget, if it's an appointment, you must be present. If it's a reappointment, you need not be present to be voted on. Now, came the things that kind of held up the informal meeting. These are the papers concerning Ballpark. Item number 19 is 2013-143. Prohibits the use of city-owned or city-acquired real estate not located within the area of the city bounded by Interstate 64, 95 to the north, Hermitage Road to the east, Wesley Street to the south, North Boulevard to the west, for a baseball stadium or facilities ancillary to a baseball stadium. So in other words, this is one of the papers that President Samuels put in concerning the baseball park. This one basically says if you can't put the ballpark anyplace but there. This is kind of oversimplifying it. And item number 21 is concerning a prohibition. Now this is the same thing, pretty much talking for a referendum on the ballpark. Now these two papers they were talking about, as it stands right now, they are technically being stricken. But when it gets to the agenda review, docket review, there's going to be a motion made to override striking these papers so that people will have a chance to come down here and speak to those tonight. So those two papers are kind of up in the air right now. Will they go forward? Will they be stricken? We'll find out once the meeting gets started. Now, the only other paper here is item number 20, and this is all about the windows at 2916 Monument Avenue, and that paper is being continued until the 9th of September. So that's where it stands right now. Okay, so where does it all stand? Well, as we look through there, we had 14 items on the consent agenda. One was withdrawn, 6 are being continued, so we're down to 7 papers there. We have 2 appointments, 2 reappointments. That's 4 papers. Now, on the regular agenda, we know 1 paper has been continued. The other 2 right now are technically stricken, but that could be overridden. So we may have nothing on the regular agenda. We may have 2 items on the regular agenda. So we may have 13 papers. We may have 11 papers. We'll know once we get started. Now, taking a look at the formal awards and presentations, we will have one for Maggie Walker Day. We'll have one personal achievements for Mr. Alexander Belton, Mr. Christopher Harris, Ms. Taisha Hicks, Ms. Ibrahim, Ms. Jenkins, and Ms. Spell. And this is official joint recognition awards. That'll be on the formal awards and recognitions. And then the citizens comment period, we have 5 people scheduled so far, and see that is going to stay at 5 people that are speaking about warm temperature policies. An invite to attend a basketball camp, state of the city, city schools, and words of appreciation for members of council. So that is what the Richmond City Council meeting looks like tonight. Will it be long? Will it be short? As we say, we don't know until we get started, and we should be getting started at any time. They did not break up the informal meeting until about 5 minutes till 6. President Samuels wants them back by 6 o'clock, but I see we're already at 6:05, so that probably will not be happening for the next few minutes. But we'll be getting started shortly for tonight's Richmond City Council meeting. I'm Dick Harmon. Stay tuned.
Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the delay. We're not quite ready to start at 6:14. We're going to try to start at 6:15. We've got about 5 members of council in here now. As soon as they come up and take their seats on the dais, we'll get started. Please feel free to continue talking until we get started there. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 6:15, and again, I apologize for the delay. We now have a quorum of council members, not only in the building, but also in the room, and therefore, I'm going to call the formal meeting of Richmond City Council for July 8th, 2013 to order. If everyone would please stand, the invocation will be given by the Reverend Thomas S. Simmons of Providence Baptist Church on Fendall Avenue, immediately followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Eternal, we thank you for this day and this opportunity of coming together. We thank you, Lord, for the city council members, the precincts and districts that they share in. We thank you, Lord, that we walk by faith and not by sight. The only way to get new blessings is to be thankful for the old ones. And so, Lord, help us to be what you want us to be, say what you want us to say, do what you want us to do, and go where you want us to go. I pray this in thy name. And together we say, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. The Chamber Emergency Evacuation Plan announcement and the Citizen Speaker Guidelines announcement will now be read by the clerk.
Upon activation of the emergency alarm systems, all persons shall immediately exit the building. Please use the exit to the left or right front of the council chamber or the east or west stairway outside the rear doors of the chamber. Do not use elevators or escalators. After exiting the building, proceed to the assembly area located in the parking lot bordered by Clay 8th and 9th Streets. All citizens and employees should assist visually and hearing impaired visitors with exiting the building. Citizen Speakers Guideline. Citizen wishing to speak during public hearing and/or citizen comment period generally have 3 minutes to speak. Persons appearing before council are not allowed to campaign for public office, promote private business venture, use language of a personal nature which insults or demeans any person, include comments directly at public official or staff members that are not related to their official duties. Address or question staff members directly. All questions should be directed to the President of the Council. Failure to adhere to the guidelines may result in speakers forfeiting any remaining time and future disciplinary actions as necessary, which could include barring from attendance at future meeting of City Council for a period of 6 months.
Mr. President, for the record, all members of council are in attendance.
Thank you very much. At this point, I'd like the clerk to read the appointments and reappointment papers.
Sure. The appointments for this evening are as follows, and when I call your name for an appointment, no reappointment, but for appointment only, if you would please stand. First is item number 15, resolution number 2013-R149 to reappoint Marcellus Plummer as a member of the Richmond Behavioral Health Authority for a term terminating July 8, 2016. Item 16, resolution number 2013-R150 to appoint Tripp Pollard as a member of the Green City Commission Green Business Job Programs for a term terminating July 8, 2016, succeeding Amber K. Foster. Item 17, Resolution number 2013-R151, to appoint Jeffrey W. Sadler as a member of the Planning Commission for a term terminating July 8, 2016, succeeding William M. Hutchins. Item 18, resolution number 2013-R152, to reappoint Vivian H. Heidemann as a member of the Personnel Board for a term terminating July 8, 2016. Those are all of the reappointment papers for consideration.
Thank you very much. After we take the vote, if you all will see the clerk who's standing up in the bow tie there, he'll take you to the back to read you to have you do the oath of office. At this point, are those in the audience that wish to speak in opposition to any of these appointments or reappointments? At this point, are there those in the audience that wish to speak in support of any of these appointments or reappointments? Very good. Back to council for any discussion. Seeing none, please call the question, Madam Clerk.
Council is voting on the appointment and reappointment papers as read. Mr. Beliles?
Aye.
Ms. Graziano?
Aye.
Ms. Mosby?
Aye.
Vice President Robertson?
Aye.
Mr. Agelasto?
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Newbill?
Aye.
President Samuels?
Aye.
Those papers have been adopted.
Thank you, and congratulations, and thank you on your willingness to serve. If you'll see Mr. Rawls in the back, please. At this point, we'd like to have the awards and presentations.
The first recognition being presented by Vice President Ellen Robertson, Mayor Dwight C. Jones, and Councilor Chris Hilbert recognize the life and work of Maggie Lena Walker. Present to receive the recognition is Melvin S. Jones, President and founder of the Maggie Walker Statue Foundation. The honorable members of Richmond City Council and the honorable mayor of Richmond hereby proclaim July 15, 2013 as Miss Maggie L. Walker Day. Born in Richmond, Virginia on July 15, 1864, Miss Maggie Lena Draper Mitchell Walker was an African-American civic leader, teacher, banker, social activist, and entrepreneur. Throughout her life, Miss Walker broke color and gender barriers of her time in promoting social, racial, gender, and economic success on behalf of the African-American community and women. Due to her outstanding dedication, leadership, and intelligence, Ms. Walker was the first woman and the first African-American woman to establish and become president of a bank in the United States, the St. Luke's Penny Savings Bank in Richmond. She also created a newspaper for the organization and opened a department store within Richmond. Throughout her life, Ms. Walker served critical roles in supporting, creating, and providing leadership for numerous civic associations during the late 19th century and early 20th century, which included establishing the juvenile branch of the Independent Order of St. Luke and an African American Fraternal Society, and being the co-founder of the Richmond chapter of the National Association of the Advancement of Colored People and the Council of Colored Women. In recognition of her significant accomplishments, success, and contributions, Ms. Walker's home, located on Lee Street in Richmond's Jackson Ward neighborhood, is an official U.S. National Historic Site that is managed and maintained by the U.S. National Park Services. In order to recognize, honor, and celebrate the life and importance of Ms. Maggie Lena Walker, Richmond City Council and Mayor Dwight C. Jones hereby proclaim July 15, 2013 to be Maggie L. Walker Day in the city of Richmond and call this observance to all of the residents.
Well, thank you, Madam Clerk, and to Councilwoman Robertson and Councilman Hilbert. It's a delight to be able to honor the memory of Maggie Walker tonight and to honor those who work very hard to make sure that her memory is not ever forgotten. And we in the city of Richmond recognize Maggie Walker as perhaps one of our, if not most greatest success stories of a daughter of slaves who came to this city and was absolutely a woman before her time, who taught us about self-sufficiency, taught us about responsibility, and really provided a pathway for us who want to make success something that we know of rather than failure. And so it is a delight to be able to be a part of this recognition tonight. And I'm not going to be satisfied until we not only have a national park here, park representation of her home, which many people come from all over the country and world to see. And that makes Richmond a highly desirable place to visit because of the Mackey Walker House, and we want to thank the Park Service for what they do. But I won't be satisfied until we get a statue in the city to make sure that everybody knows who Maggie Walker was. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, citizens of this great city of Richmond, to my fellow colleagues of City Council, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Hilbert. This is great honor. Maggie Walker is certainly a stature herself in the city of Richmond. And we have not done our best yet to give honor to the great work that she has done and the great things that she did long before her time, as the mayor has said. I especially want to thank the parks for the services that you provide, how you make this such a wonderful destination for visitors and for local citizens to visit. But I also want to thank her son. I'm sure that the day will come, Melvin, that you will meet this fine woman and she will embrace you as her son. For truly, you have carried this burden and you have been diligent and you have been persistent. You've been kind. You've held us all to a higher standard of accountability in the process, but you've done it with great passion and great love for this wonderful work that she has done. And I want to thank you for making sure that Richmond does not fail to recognize the great things that we have been afforded the opportunity to experience through Mrs. Walker. Thank you so much for your dedication. And I'm grateful, Mr. Mayor. We're looking forward to a statue of the first African-American female in the city of Richmond. I'm looking forward to that. Yes, absolutely.
Well, boy, it's tough to be third. But what else can be said about Miss Walker? She's really an inspiration to us all, of someone from humble beginnings who just had a tremendous impact on our city. And I did want to add that, Mr. Jones, you are her son. You have, your persistence in this has been stellar, and I look forward to the day when we unveil this statue. I want you to be on the front row, absolutely. And Ms. Robertson said it quite well. I hope I'm there when you and Ms. Walker embrace in the world beyond. That will be a wonderful reunion. Thank you to the Park Service for your dedication to preserving this site. And we look forward to next year is 150.
Yes, sir.
We have a lot of celebrations here of emancipation coming up in our city. And certainly this would be a noteworthy occasion to add to that sesquicentennial celebration. Thank you.
Okay.
On behalf of the entire council and all citizens of the city of Richmond, we present you with this recognition award.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Park Services want to say something if they can.
Thank you. My name is Gina Rogers, and I'm Site Supervisor at Maggie L. Walker National Historic Site. And our superintendent, David Ruth, can't be here today, and he wishes he could be here. He was so pleased to hear about this, as we all are. So, as you mentioned, the Maggie L. Walker National Historic Site is preparing to commemorate the 150th birthday of Mrs. Walker next year, July 15th, 2014. So it's extremely gratifying to know that these preparations will be heralded with this proclamation celebrating Mrs. Walker's life and achievements. And we are hosting programs this Saturday to celebrate her 149th birthday, so the timing of the proclamation is perfect. And I have further information here about the site and about the celebrations if you'd like to have that. So I'll give those over to you. So for the National Park Service, important stories like Maggie L. Walker's are central to the service's theme for its Civil War sesquicentennial observations. Civil War to Civil Rights. Born during the final year of the war, Mrs. Walker became a key figure in continuing the struggles of African Americans for social justice and equality of opportunity. Indeed, Mrs. Walker's lifetime of work to empower women and African Americans was transformational for her community and our nation, and inspirational not only in her time, but in ours. Increased awareness of Maggie Walker's life and times helps us all better understand what the war and the intervening 150 years mean to us today. We would also like to acknowledge the diligent work of Melvin Jones. He's worked hard to seek opportunities to celebrate Maggie L. Walker and to build awareness of her life and work within the Richmond community. His community-based efforts reflect the example of Mrs. Walker herself. Finally, we are grateful to you, Mayor Jones, and members of the City Council for your leadership and support of Maggie L. Walker National Historic Site. Mrs. Walker envisioned a community whose members support and uplift one another, and this proclamation reflects that vision. Thank you.
First of all, this man right here beside me, Mr. Maurice Hopkins, the class of '65, is supporting this statue. This is my big brother. So, you know, he's always in my corner. But I want to thank council. Thank you, Mayor Jones. I really appreciate it. I've been writing letters to every one of y'all, but I do thank you. And there's a lot more to come. So be watching next week. No, really, seriously, there's more to come. I mean, good stuff for Richmond. We got the Redskins here, but watch what Maggie Walker's going to do in this past week. Seriously, watch what's coming, y'all. There's some good stuff coming. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag yet, but there's some good stuff coming for Richmond. Seriously. So thank you very much, everybody. Thanks. Thank you, Mayor Jones.
The next recognition, being presented by Vice President Robertson and Mayor Dwight C. Jones, recognizes the 2013 Richmond Redevelopment and Housing Authority Scholarship Award recipients. Present to receive the recognition are Alexander Belton and Christopher Harris, both of John Marshall High School, Taisha Colleen Hicks, Gesima Abraham, and Tabrika Jenkins, all of Thomas Jefferson High School, and Tanya Spell of Armstrong High School. The honorable members of Richmond City Council and the honorable mayor of Richmond hereby recognize 2013 Richmond Public Schools graduates who are residents in Richmond Redevelopment and Housing Authority's Gilpin Court, Green Walk, and Whitcomb Court communities for their personal achievements and academic success. In recognition of their potential and in support of their academic achievements, each student was recently chosen to receive a 2013 Richmond Redevelopment and Housing Authority Scholarship Award in the amount of $4,000 each. The Honorable Richmond City Council members and the Honorable Mayor Dwight C. Jones are proud to officially recognize, honor, and celebrate these students for their personal achievements and accomplishments and bring this to the attention of all of our residents.
Yes, give them a round of applause. We want to start out by saying we're proud of you. We want to start out by saying that we really celebrate the fact that you have chosen the road to academic excellence and that you have chosen the road to higher education and that you are going on to further your self-development and to get the training you need in order to be gainfully employed and to be substantive members of our society. I want you to know that you have done so well in high school that you are so far ahead of where I was when I was your age that no telling where you're going to go. And so I'm very proud of that. I talked to each of you as I came in tonight, and you told me about the universities and the colleges that you're going to, and it is extremely impressive. And I just want to remind you that it's not where you're from, it's where you're going. Just want to remind you that you can be anything and anybody that you want to be. And I'm looking forward to the time that you take the jobs of everybody up here, because we know that there's a leader in you. We know that there's a success in you. And finally, I want to congratulate Ms. Goolsby and recognize the fact that the head of the Housing Department, Redevelopment Housing Authority, is here with you tonight. She didn't send you here, but she came here with you. So, Adrian, I want to commend you on that. Congratulations.
I'd just like to say, you know, I was at the Housing Authority's board meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I happened to go on the right night because I got the opportunity to see the presentation of the awards to these young adults as they move forward in their lives from high school and make that first big step of separation from your families and become independent adults that are responsible for all the decisions that you make. And I was so proud not only of you, but also of the families that were there to support you. And if there are family members that are here, I'd like for you all to stand as well. Yeah. Thank you very much. You can remain standing if you like. We know that the work of getting our young people through the school system and getting them prepared and sending them off to college is a big job, and it would not happen without the support of the families. And I want to say to each one of you that Richmond is your home. You may choose to live other places, and I know that many of you are leaving Richmond to go to college. But Richmond is your home, and we do welcome you to come back to Richmond and bring those wonderful talents that you will acquire and that fabulous education that you are going to get back here to this great city and be the future leaders for the next generation, so that old people like me can think about retiring with comfort, because we know that we've got some young people that are following behind us. You've done a great job. You're going to do a great job in college. You're going to enjoy the experience. It's going to be a new experience for you, but it's one that will be life-changing for you. So get the maximum out of it. And I want to thank the Housing Authority, Adrian, for your leadership that you have brought to the City of Richmond and the Housing Authority, and also the Board of Directors for your continued support in recognizing this wonderful group of students for their great achievements. Thank you, students and family.
Mr. President, those are all of the awards and recognitions for this evening.
Thank you. At this point, we will then do the agenda review and agenda amendments.
The amendments to tonight's agenda are as follows. Item 1, ordinance number 2013-80 has been stricken. Item 2, has been withdrawn. Item 2, ordinance number 2013-96 will be continued to September 9th council meeting. Item 3, ordinance number 2013-111 will be amended and continued later on this evening. Item 4, ordinance number 2013-112 will be continued to September 9th council meeting. Item 10, ordinance number 2013-140 will be continued to July 22nd council meeting. Item 11, ordinance number 2013-141 will be continued to July 22nd council meeting. And that paper will also be heard at the July 16th Land Use and Housing and Transportation Standing Committee meeting at 3 p.m. Item 12, ordinance number 2013-142, will be continued to July 22nd council meeting, and that paper will also be heard at the Land Use, Housing, and Transportation Standing Committee meeting on July 16th at 3 p.m. Item 19, ordinance number 2013-143, will be stricken. Item 20, resolution number 2013-R47, will be continued to September 9th council meeting. Item 21, resolution number 2013-R157, will be stricken. Those are all the amendments I have thus far.
Thank you. Any motions from council members?
Mr. President.
Mr. Hilbert?
Mr. President, I would like to, override the committee's recommendation regarding item 19 and 21 so that they can be placed back on the regular agenda, and to override the recommendation of the committee to strike the paper from consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Hilbert. This is a motion that does not allow for public comment. Are there any comments by council members? Seeing none, please call the vote, Madam.
Well, I need to second the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do need a second on that motion.
Seconded.
Mr. Agelasto, thank you for seconding the motion. Call the question, Madam Clerk, please.
Council is voting on Mr. Hilbert's motion to override the committee's recommendation on item 19 and 21. Mr. Blouse?
Aye.
Ms. Graziano?
Aye.
Ms. Mosby?
Aye.
Vice President Robertson?
Aye.
Mr. Agelasto?
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Newbill?
Aye.
President Samuel?
Aye.
Those two items has been forwarded back to the agenda.
Thank you. Are there any additional amendments to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, with that one change, can we please take a roll call on the amended agenda?
Right. I need a motion to amend the agenda as previously read. Ms.
So
Mosby,
moved,
can
Madam
you-
Clerk.
Thank you, Ms. Newbill. Mr. Blouse?
Aye.
Ms. Graziano?
Aye.
Ms. Mosby?
Aye.
Vice President Robertson?
Aye.
Mr. Agelasto?
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Newbill?
Aye.
President Samuel?
Aye.
The amended agenda is before you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start with the regular agenda now. That would start with paper 19, and I'd like to take with paper 19, paper 21 as a block, please.
Item 19 is ordinance number 2013-143 to prohibit the use of city-owned or city-acquired real estate not located within the area of the city bounded by Interstate 64 and 95 to the north, Hermitage Road to the east, West Lee Street to the south, and North Boulevard to the west for a baseball stadium or facility auxiliary to a baseball stadium. Item number 21 is resolution number 2013-R157 to order the submission to the qualified voters of the city of Richmond of ordinance number 2013-143 concerning the prohibition on the use of city-owned or city-acquired real estate not located within the area of the city bounded by Interstate 64, 95 to the north, Hermitage Road to the west, West Lee Street to the south, and North Boulevard to the west for a baseball stadium or facilities auxiliary to a baseball stadium for an advisory referendum thereon.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. As the patron of the paper, I'm afforded an opportunity to say a few words. And the first thing I want to say is thank you to the unanimous council for voting aye on Mr. Hilbert's motion. Had council not done that, there could not have been public hearing on these two papers tonight, and your voice would have been completely scratched out. And I think that it shows the will of council to have a dialogue about this issue and to make sure we do hear from the people, and I'm thrilled that that's occurred. There are several things to discuss in favor and in opposition to this paper. I only have a limited amount of time to introduce them, so I'll go through them quickly. The first argument is, of course, that we don't have enough information at this point to vote on this paper, to send it to the people for a referendum. And I respectfully disagree. While we may not tonight know every proposal that's out there or have had discussions about every proposal that's out there, these referendum papers would provide 3 months of intense dialogue, debate, and conversation about not only the location of a baseball stadium, but whether we need a new one, how it should be funded, whether our regional partners should be involved. Those are all critical issues that we have to discuss. And I believe that in 3 months, all of those topics can be discussed. However, without a mandate from the people to focus on this issue and get it done, it could drag on forever. The next argument was that people aren't smart enough, not smart enough, but people aren't going to be able to understand the intricacies of this, that this is something that is too complex for the average voter to understand. And I disagree with that too. For one, everybody was nice enough to vote for each of us up, well, not everybody, but enough of everybody was nice enough to vote for all of us, where they understood the issues facing their districts, and those were some complex issues. People were capable of figuring that out. People were capable of figuring out the referendum on the elected mayor. In Virginia, people have been capable of figuring out whether or not they wanted a lottery and where that money would go. People were capable of figuring out horse racing and whether or not that should be legal. No matter how difficult a situation can be to understand, the people of the city of Richmond genuinely care and want to work to find out the information. I believe that it is not too complex a question to have a public discussion about where a stadium should go and let the people have their strongest voice, their vote on the issue. The next argument was that this is an abdication of leadership. We were elected to lead, not to ask you for advice on how you want us to act. And I disagree there as well. Public discourse and public comment are crucial. And you just saw that from 9 council people up here, that we want to hear what you have to say tonight. I would say that giving people a tangible opportunity to speak, to know they're going to have a vote, encourages that dialogue and invites buy-in from every person in the city, as opposed to just the 9 of us listening to the few people that might write in. It really puts it back in your hands and allows you to inform us on what you would have done. It's not an abdication of leadership to ask people for advice. I would say that not actively seeking out public input is the abdication of leadership. Ignoring the will of the people is an abdication of leadership, but not reaching out to people. The referendum could engage the entire region. While only citizens of Richmond can vote on it, it certainly could encompass a discussion that involves the surrounding localities as well. And like I said, we would have to have a discussion not just on the actual question of the referendum, where should this go, but also how should it be paid for? Should the region be involved? And after 10 years, don't we need to sit down and honestly have that discussion? I mean, technically, the stadium's been there since 1985. Clearly, it had a lifespan, let's just say, of 20 years, which puts us at 2005. So for almost the last decade, we've needed to have that conversation. For more than a decade, we've seen plans presented where people have told us, this is what we're going to do to you. For the first time in this 10-year period, I'm asking that you tell us what you want done. So I'm happy about putting this referendum up for a vote. I don't have any misconceptions about which way this vote may end up going. But I am thrilled that council allowed people to have a say tonight, and I want to thank each of them for their leadership on that. And I'm also looking forward to hearing from you, because even if the referendum doesn't pass, I am very excited about the excitement people have felt just by thinking there might be an opportunity to have a real discussion about this. With that, I'll open it up to public comment, and then I'm going to bring it back to council. Are there those in opposition to the referendum papers? Yes, sir. Please come on down.
Good evening. President Samuels, members of council. I am Cal Whitehead, representing the Richmond Business Council of the Greater Richmond Chamber. I live in the 4th District and own a small business a few blocks down the hill from here. I was present last week at the Organizational Development Standing Committee, and in short, believe that the committee's recommendation to strike these papers was the correct one. As we said last week, this is a huge issue, and we absolutely applaud and encourage council and other stakeholders to engage in a public and detailed review and judgment on all the plans, many of which, or most of which, we haven't seen at all. So we welcome and we believe that the best process is a public hearing process, and we do, as we said last week, trust this council to allow for that and give, just as you have tonight and just as you did last week, and give the public and stakeholders full and ample opportunity to comment. So we urge you all to stick with the recommendation of the committee last week, reject these papers, and allow for a public discussion about the plans as they become available. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. Next speaker, please.
My name is Montague Magruder. I'm speaking in opposition to these items because I do not feel that they should even be up for discussion when we have more critical issues to address. Like, for example, the lack of bus service in the city, the fact that schools are getting closed. I think those are more critical issues that we need to be addressing instead of trying to figure out where to put a baseball stadium, which would basically serve no realistic purpose. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bullock.
My name is Roderick Bullock. Members of council, I am against this paper. Just like the gentleman said, we have other pressing issues. And the city, I mean, if you look at the athletic facilities in Richmond Public Schools, which is horrendous, I had an opportunity to play, coach, and officiate on all these facilities, and we're asking to build a stadium. And that's not good for the community, and that's not good for Richmond. Especially if you look over at Armstrong, field is horrendous. You look at John Marshall, they don't even have a track or a stadium at all. You look at George Wythe, they put all that money into that facility, but they can't even use the facilities because the lights are not even in the right place. And ultimately, when you ask them to put this, we don't know how much the funds are going to be implemented, how much the city of Richmond is on the hook for. We don't know anything. And then you say, okay, we're going to build a stadium, but you got all these facilities in Richmond Public Schools that are in dire straits. I'm totally against this paper. We need to think about our priorities and really think about the people of the city of Richmond, especially if you want this city to be a Tier 1 city. You definitely got to look at the education, the facilities that we have, and look at those and fix and we're building new schools, but we ain't fixed the old ones that need to be fixed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bullock. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Council. I am Lawrence Williams, architect. I'm a resident of the 6th District. I'm not in favor of this resolution. If you use the same approach, you get the same results. So Richmond needs to change and compete with other cities like Charlotte, as well as the Inner Harbor in Baltimore. The paper does not give other proposals or property owners the opportunity to be vetted for their potential before it is presented to the citizens of Richmond or the region. Alternative sites like Manchester on the River, Richmond International Raceway, the Boulevard, and Chaco. Council could be approached at any time by a private sector partnership, and they would have to respond to it, possibly legally. All of this would lead to a lot of unnecessary complications. It would also lead to acres and acres of parking around another baseball facility. My preference is Chaco Bottom with parking below the field, 2 levels, 1,200 cars, high-rise on the boulevard where taxes can be obtained. I have vetted a few of the alternatives that can be found that can be found on my website, lawrencewilliamsarchitect.com. The media should recognize the facility not as a baseball facility, but as a multi-use facility. It should be a place on the scale of Hampton University, University of Richmond's multipurpose events. The University of Phoenix has an entire football field that comes out of a building and then returns in the building. And if a college can do it, I don't see why the city of Richmond can't build a few parking spaces under a green roof stadium. Your comparable in reality is Charlotte. I would ask the media to look at Charlotte's new baseball stadium. It's downtown. It's for year-round events, high school events, college events, tournaments. And I think the Squirrels can work with that as well in terms of being sharing a facility. Hampton graduates, they graduate in the spring on the outside. The University of Virginia students graduate in a very pleasant garden-type environment on the exterior. Hampton University is a good comparable. It's adjacent to a historic campus, and it works extremely well. And I can't imagine graduating students would be the ultimate way to honor any of our past ancestors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Donald Hatcher. I'm appalled at the thought of talking about building a baseball station for baseball players to play in. When the city of Richmond, it's amazing that the city of Richmond in 1954 went before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ordered that in the city of Richmond, the schools should be integrated. 1954, this is the year 2013. How in the devil can black folks in this city, and white folks also, not have the sense to look at what's going on in Richmond? A baseball stadium, yeah, it's something people want. But when you look at the racial instances going on in the city of Richmond, you got a police department corrupt. You got a city that's corrupt as the devil. People, citizens of this city, don't have any rights, it seems. If you try to make an appointment to see the rundown, no good mayor of this city, he denies you the right to be able to talk to him. Now, I got a real problem. I'm a citizen of this city. My family done lived in this city how many years? And when I go to, as an activist, to see the mayor of the city, he refused to talk to me. Well, I don't care if the bum ever talked to me. I'm a little sick of the foolishness in this city. I done got to be 73 years old. I'm tired of the racism that continue to go on in this city. Don't nobody white see nothing. Where do the white kids go to school at? Talking about baseball. Why don't you get this city straightened out? 9 of you sitting here. I don't know what your preferences are, but I'm a little tired of being an American citizen. And a baseball stadium coming for a school system that run down, a city being ran, buses you can't catch. It's amazing what goes on in this city. And you 9 sit here and don't make no progress? It's a joke to me. I ain't gonna live about so long, but I'm a little tired of 73 years of being mistreated as a black, not an American. Y'all talk about Maggie Walker. Maggie Walker's daddy was a white man. How did she get to be a Negro? When you look at Virginia Union University, started in a jail, Lumpkin jail. Lumpkin was married to a black woman. What are we talking about in this city? We all Americans. This matter of being black or I'm Spanish or whatever is going on needs to stop.
Please begin to summarize.
It's sickening to me. 73 years I've been putting up with this foolishness, and I got to come in and look at a mayor of a city that plays his game, but you as a citizen who's activist, he can't talk to. Send him on back to Philadelphia, there's no good city up there. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is L. Shirley Harvey. As a former Richmond City Council person, I want the people who are listening outside of these chambers and the people in the audience to realize that this is a maneuver used by people on city council to get the people in the city to do what they want them to do. The consensus of the people in this city is, we don't want a stadium in downtown Richmond. Let me say that again, because evidently you didn't hear it. But everybody who gets up here to speak say, we don't want a stadium in downtown Richmond. Did you get that? The things that we are concerned about here in Richmond are not baseball stadiums with a A-plus group of people who are playing baseball. A stadium that's only used for baseball. You don't even do anything else with it. We have an empty Coliseum. We have an empty Arthur Ashe Stadium. Nothing is being done about those. You just gave $10 million away to the people from Altria so that they could repair the theater downtown, but you still don't do anything about things that need to be done. We need our children to go to decent schools. I don't know if you hear us. Do I have to speak up? We need to have the gas and water rates reduced. We need to make sure that you are spending our money in places that ought to be spent. We do not need for you to give money away to people so that they don't have to pay taxes, these big corporations. We are tired of this. And then you try to put in our head and say to us, oh, we're going to give you a chance to vote on this. That's not what you mean. What you mean is that you're going to get enough people to vote for the way you want them to so that we don't know what's happening. And from what happened last year in the city of Richmond, we know that there is cheating in the voting ranks. The people who handle that type of duty cheat. So let me just say this to you. Again, we don't want a baseball stadium in downtown Richmond, and there's no reason to vote on it and no reason for you to bring it up again.
Next speaker, please.
My name is Chris Dorsey. I'm going to just say ditto, and then I'm going to add some things to what Shirley Harvey just said. And number one, what everybody is missing out on is the fact that we have a baseball stadium, and we had a baseball stadium when we didn't even have a baseball team. So I think people are getting things backwards. Don't be fooled at all by what Charles Samuels says. I wouldn't believe any of the words that just came out of his mouth, and I don't really believe anything else that comes out of his mouth either. This is not about hearing what the people have to say. I mean, I think the people are already very clear that we have a baseball stadium, that parking is already crazy and outrageous in the city, and I don't know, the city would be shut down, the downtown area of the city would be shut down, so construction companies that line all of your pockets and you know, on behalf of the Economic Development Authority, you know, law firms that you just gave away millions of dollars worth of the man and woman hours of the Richmond workers. You know, basically, that's what you do. You take construction kickbacks. You all are absolutely every single one of you is crooked to the core. You cannot be in any way reformed. And I think it's pretty obvious. This is all about big construction kickbacks, because it's not about baseball, because we have a baseball team. And actually, we had a baseball stadium that was good enough for a AAA baseball team, and now the same stadium isn't good enough for a AA baseball team that has been in this town for several years. Are the owners not making enough money? I mean, they can feel free to move. And I'd like to close by saying that there are more issues that go on in government other than professional sports. One might be confused about that fact, watching the media or paying attention to what the so-called elected officials are saying, but professional sports, not everybody likes professional sports. I like sports, but that doesn't mean that all the time spent talking by the government and all the focus of what the people hear about the government functions revolves around sports. It's a distraction. It's a ploy. I say this council has no honor, and you have no legal standing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Give an opportunity for any others who want to speak in opposition. Seeing none, any of those who wish to speak in favor to these papers, please step forward.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, Vice President, members of the City Council. My name is Charles Willis, and I come to speak in favor of the right to vote. I come and speak in favor of the right to choose. I come in speaking in favor of the right to have an opportunity to be heard. All of those things come along with the opportunity of being a citizen of the City of Richmond. One of the things I found out through school board member in 8th District, as he voted to support a particular referendum or a particular vote that he made, and I shared with him that I disagreed with that vote. And we shook hands, we smiled, and he said, Mr. Willis, there are going to be many things that we may disagree on, but there are going to be a whole lot of more things we're going to agree on. And I say to you, Mr. Samuels, that there are times where I disagree, but I applaud the opportunity that you and Mr. Hilbert and other colleagues here that have allowed the opportunity for the citizens to be heard. Now, I'm not going to get into whether or not there are some tricks or politics or whatever is going on. I'm not going to get into the fact that there are some hidden agendas. All I know is that publicly today, you have shared with the community and you have shared with me that had not Mr. Hilbert made the motion, that I wouldn't be standing here. And that is applaudable to me than anything else that I've heard today. The fact that I have an opportunity to stand here and exercise my right to speak or not speak. And that's why I'm up here today. I'm here in support of the fact that there will be some opportunity of a referendum where the citizens that vote here in the city would have that opportunity. I support the fact that there will be an opportunity for dialogue, and I look for more dialogue in between the opportunity of the referendum going forward. I look for the fact that I can call my council member, or I can call other council members and ask questions about it to see how they feel on the other side of the river or the other side of the street. I look forward to the opportunity of attending not only the 8th District City Council meeting, but those in the 9th District and those in the 4th and the 1st District and the other 7th District. And then also I look for the opportunity of the choice where the location would go. Now, I hear a lot of folks saying downtown. I don't know nothing about downtown. I heard about it once before, maybe a year ago. But I look forward that this referendum
You have 30.
not only would have the opportunity to say where it goes, but also the opportunity where folks can come together like we're doing tonight to have that choice. So again, I thank you. I support the paper, and I support the continued efforts of each council member making sure that we as citizens know where and when issues like this come up. Thank you. God bless all of you all.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Derek Gregory, and I'm here before you all tonight to voice my support for the proposed referendum on the November ballot concerning the planned baseball stadium. I am not an advocate of any organization. I only speak for myself and others in Richmond concerned about this matter. Last week, the City Council voted 6-3 to abandon a referendum put forth by Mr. Samuels to directly ask the citizens of Richmond whether or not they would want to keep the Flying Squirrels at the current site on the boulevard or move the stadium to another location. In doing so, City Council has disenfranchised any and all public parties with interest in this matter. By putting the lid on this referendum, the City Council has effectively proclaimed, this is not your stadium, this is not your team, this is not your fight. Richmond City Council is alienating its constituency and furthering the rift between perceived and actual public involvement in local government. Certain members of this council has gone on record saying this measure, stating it will not be good for the city if emotions are hitting the button and we need more information. However, the people of Richmond do have and have had enough information on this matter. Former city manager Calvin Jameson discussed a potential stadium on the Ethel Corporation-owned land near the Federal Reserve in April 2001. The original proposal for a stadium in Shockoe Bottom was floated in October 2003, and the Richmond Braves left for Gwinnett right after the 2008 season. That brings us to 2013, 12 years later. This has been more than enough time for the citizens of Richmond to formulate their own opinions and information on what to do about a new stadium. There is no harm in asking the people in a non-binding manner if they would like to see the location of their baseball stadium changed. If you should make no mention of a new location, only state the fact that the team could move and ask what their opinion would be. Again, I'm not advocating for any particular site, only that the people you represent feel involved in this issue for once in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is John Delp. I'm a resident of the 3rd District. I'm very supportive of item 19 for the prohibition of a new building anywhere. On the other hand, I'm a little concerned about item 21. There was obviously some confusion with people speaking against these proposals as to what they were speaking on. And I have my doubts as to what people are going to be responding to come a referendum, given the way it's summarized in this proposal, whether they'll know whether they're voting for or against a new stadium or not. That's all.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mr. President, council members. My name is John Hewlett Jr. I live in Councilwoman Reba Trammell's district. I have lived in Richmond all my life for the exception of 4 years military time. Richmond is my home and I love it. I was born July 1934 in Uptown Lee Street, that is north of the river, and I have lived in just about every section of Richmond. I am here tonight to speak against building a baseball stadium on sacred land in Shockoe Bottom. Nothing could be more atrocious than desecrating Shockoe Bottom for a AA baseball team when there is a stadium already in place on the boulevard. Only non-thinking transplants with no allegiance to the city of Richmond or to the people of Richmond who elected them into office would think of something as dumb as this. In my opinion, the only reason for such a dumb project as putting a baseball stadium in Shockoe Bottom is to fatten the pockets of powers that be. And who will pay for the proposed baseball stadium? We, the taxpayers, of course, just as we will pay for the $14.5 million being given to one of the richest firms in the United States to build their building. Does anyone in power ever consider that Richmond has approximately 50% poverty rate? Why give $9 million of taxpayers' money to the Washington football team when Richmond's infrastructure is in shambles? Why is the mayor wasting $400,000 of taxpayers' money on security he doesn't need? The government of Richmond continues to give away money to the wealthy like a reverse Robin Hood, taking from the poor and giving to the rich. Who is in whose pocket? Again, I am not in favor of building a stadium in Shockoe Bottom or anywhere else other than the boulevard. And I would like to add one more thing. Mr. President, thank you for your wisdom, and I'm hoping that I can rely on you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Council President and City Council members. My name is Kwame Benta, and I'd like to speak in support of this referendum being placed in front of the voters so that once and for all we can nip this unnecessary discussion in the bud. I kind of condemned the guy that came before me because nobody in their right mind would even think about putting a stadium down in Shockoe Bottom. There's no room already for traffic to move to Shockoe Bottom, and to put it down there makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And on top of that, Richmond has a very unique and rich history down in Shockoe Bottom. We should be focusing on learning the history of Richmond, because the history of Richmond is basically the history of the United States. It would be wonderful if we can use our vision to create a historical, educational experience down in Shackley Bottom for our students in Richmond Public Schools, and focus on more important things like education, housing, health care, and the things that the citizens here in Richmond are more concerned about than a baseball field. This has been going on entirely too long. Okay, so hopefully this referendum that's going to be hopefully presented to the voters in Richmond will nip this unnecessary discussion in the bud. We have a stadium already in a location that's pretty much perfect. The highway's right there. There's plenty more land to be developed in that area. It's not congested. It just makes more sense to move on to more pressing things. The vocational school in Richmond needs to be expanded tenfold because a lot of our students are not going to be going to college, but they need to learn how to make a living. And one way to make a living is to be able to use your hands to do things, to create things, to build things, to repair things. So let's focus on educating our children, giving them a quality education, some quality housing, affordable housing, and maybe even look at implementing a living wage for the people in the Richmond area and expanding that bus transportation so we can go out into the counties where the better high-paying jobs are located. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Daia Rashid, and I'm a resident of Richmond, Virginia. I speak on behalf of myself and also on behalf of the Richmond Defenders. First, on behalf of myself, I feel that we already have a stadium. We just got the Redskins to come in, and we could get any other type of sports and make that a sports arena. Second, it hardens me. It breaks my heart to think that you and any other person, because black and white sitting on this city council, the James River is the beginning of all of us. You brought my ancestors here, enslaved as slaves in chains. They came up through that bottom. They worked hard to build this country. Your ancestors forced them to work, but they still were there, and it's a part of their history also, so it's very important. The history of the black and the whites came from the James River. We struggled down there. We have historical sites there, and for you to admit that and to think that a diamond is more important than our history, let's go back to giving Maggie Walker a stadium. What do you think about the Shackley Bottom? The Shackley Bottom is also a moneymaker. It's also a place where travelers from out of town could come and see and recognize exactly where history started here in the United States, right here in Richmond, Virginia. The nerve of you to think that you should just omit that. You need to soften your hearts, black and white, and realize that's where our history began. We don't destroy history to build a diamond. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. President, City Council members. My name is Omar Wale Dean. I'm a member of the African Ancestral Chamber. You know, I'm in support of anytime people can vote and a referendum is brought before them, people died for the right to vote. I'm 61 years old, and I never thought I'd see so many black people on city council as we see now. And so they go to show you the progress that we have made fighting and struggling against oppression and against prejudice. But if the Shackley Bottom area was a chimera, a fantasy land, then, you know, you could say, okay, let's, you know, put no importance to this. But that area is real, and it's one of the most important areas on this planet as far as African history goes for us over here in the United States. I think that we should not put a baseball diamond and cover and hide our precious and most important heritage, legacy, and history in the Virginia area and in the country. I think that we should think twice before we even have the audacity to think that we can cover and hide our own history. People have been doing it for centuries, time immemorial. Our history has been covered, hidden, and changed. I think that it is very important that we try to preserve our legacy and our heritage. All of my black brothers and sisters that's on city council, all of the white brothers and sisters, y'all history is down there too. You know, just remember that, you know, it's one of the most important areas in the United States. And we should not cover it up with a baseball diamond. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
Mr. President, members of council, I'm Phil Willado, editor of the Virginia Defender newspaper. I want to speak in support of President Samuel's proposal to put a referendum question on the November ballot. We have been working very hard to try to get across to members of City Council and the mayor that there is no popular support for putting a baseball stadium in Shockoe Bottom. We set up a web page. We have an online petition. I know that all of you have received more than 300 emails opposing a stadium in Shockoe Bottom. Tonight, 3 people spoke in favor of putting a stadium there, and all of these other people are speaking against it. We come to these meetings. We don't get paid to be here. We try to turn out. We don't bring hundreds. We bring dozens. Our voice is not strong enough. I don't understand why you don't want to hear what the public at large has to say. This referendum has been misrepresented as government by referendum. That's not what it is. It's an advisory question. It only gives you a chance to listen to the community and take the pulse of the community. I don't understand why you don't want to do that. I do understand what is behind the proposal for Shockoe Bottom Stadium. The counties have made it clear they won't put money into a stadium. The developers have made clear they want the North Boulevard for commercial development, and they have told you, they are telling the mayor that they will support a stadium in Shockoe Bottom, which will raise the property values of the major downtown developers, primary among them H. Louis Salomonsky, the largest downtown developer, who has already been to prison once for attempting to bribe city council to promote a pro-development council member as mayor. This is what's going on behind the scenes. This is the only reason there is a proposal, that there is a suggestion to put a baseball stadium on the site of what was the second largest slave trading district in all of the United States. I urge you, regardless of what you do with this referendum, forget about a downtown ballpark and start to think about how this city can properly reclaim and memorialize this small area downtown that has such phenomenal historical importance, not only for the black community, but for everyone who wants to know how this country developed. It is estimated that the majority of African Americans across the country could trace some ancestry to Shockoe Bottom. How can you think about building the stadium based on racism? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. I'm Beth Marshak, and I grew up in Richmond. It was actually in Henrico County, but in those days, people in Henrico County said they lived in Richmond. And as soon as I was on my own, I moved into the city, and I've lived here for over 40 years. I live in the 5th District right now. I'm here to support the advisory referendum and to oppose a baseball stadium in Shockoe Bottom. Somewhere around 50% of African Americans in the United States could trace their roots to the auctions of enslaved black persons in the markets of Shockoe Bottom. This does not count white Americans that could do the same because they have some African American heritage as well. For that reason, this Shockoe Bottom area is equivalent to the Ellis Island of Richmond and is significant to both Richmond's history and to American history. No one would seriously consider putting a baseball stadium on Ellis Island, and we should not be considering it here in Richmond. Having a baseball stadium that also has a museum or an area of interpretation of history does not change how that would just be a terrible idea. I do support this advisory referendum. This is not the same as a legally binding referendum that would be having the public legislate land use. It's a way to advise council on what city voters would like. And I believe it's important to give people a chance to have more input into this. I also think that if there is a referendum, it will help to bring to light the details of any proposals that may be out there for a stadium in Shockoe Bottom, so we actually have something to look at and discuss. So I do hope that you'll support this, and I think it's always good to give people a chance to have their input, both by voting and by participating in council meetings and in their local areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, President, City Council members. My name is Rolanda McMillan. I come here to oppose the stadium in Shockoe Bottom, and I'm trying to figure out why are we here again on the same subject. I was hoping that it was over with, but obviously you guys don't get it. The people before me have already told you the reasons, a lot of reasons why we feel as though there should not be a stadium there. How many times we got to keep on talking about it? I don't know. Why you disrespect the public? Okay, this is going to give us a chance to speak and let you know that we do not want a stadium right there in Shockoe Bottom. You have numerous places, the boulevard, whatever, anywhere but Shockoe Bottom. You guys, don't want to think about places or ways to make Shockoe Bottom flourish with the history there. You rather put something there that we don't even need, playing ball. Huh, please. Come on now. Get it together. You're supposed to represent the communities, right? We have been over this already. You already know public opinion does not want a stadium there. Why are we still going through this? Why do we have to keep going over the same stuff? I'm asking you guys to please, once we get it, we got the petition going on, it's going to be a whole lot going on because we're sick and tired of the bull crap. You guys do not hold up what you say you're holding up. The community does not want a stadium there. It's not even room for what's going on now. The hospital we fought for the burial ground. We got rid of parking space right there. Okay. Those people hate walking down that hill, finding other places to park. Oh, well, the parking space was on our ancestors. It's the same difference. We have not even gotten the significance out of what is in Shockoe Bottom yet. You guys don't even spend time putting money in it to find out about that. I'm so sick and tired of it. I was born here. I am thankful I was not raised here. I'm back here, been here for over 20 years. This city is ridiculous. It is really ridiculous. You guys need to get it together. Vote on things that make sense, that really make the city work. That stadium is not one of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you all very much. My name is Jim Armstrong. I live in the Museum District here in Richmond. Councilmember Belisle is my council member. Thank you very much for your service. I wrote to each of you not too long ago, and I want to thank Councilmember Graziano for her acknowledgement of that note and Councilmember Agelasto for a detailed acknowledgement of my note. Thank you very much, sir, for your response. I like the idea of a referendum. I also like the idea of the proposal in item number 19 that would bar movement of the stadium outside of the area around the boulevard. And I won't go into the reasons I described for you in my note. I would like to reiterate, it amazes me that we're here once more. This is the third time this matter has come up for public conversation. I wonder at what's behind the persistence of this idea when we seem to have seen it submerge beneath consideration time after time. So here we are again, and we'll continue to come back, I think. As you know, I oppose the idea of placing a stadium in Shockoe Bottom for a variety of reasons, most of which you've heard. But I also think it's important that we find some way of putting this matter to rest so that those of us who are concerned with other uses for Shockoe Bottom can move on without the threat of baseball stadium development overpowering and swamping any other ideas for the use of that area. That's an area for commemoration, for memorialization, as many of the folks who have already spoken to you have said. And I wanted you to know that it's not just Churchill and it's not just the African American community that's concerned about this issue. There are folks throughout the city, and it's a multiracial concern. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir. Same opportunity, anybody that came in late that wishes to speak in favor. Very good. Bring it back to council for discussion. Mr. Agelasto.
We had, as Councilwoman Robertson pointed out earlier, we had about 2 hours of a conversation at our organizational development meeting. And at the time, there was a lot of difference of opinions, and trying to understand where different council members come from, I wonder whether it wouldn't behoove us to separate the resolution and the ordinance and vote on these separately.
Thank you, Mr. Agelasto. We will actually have to vote on them separately, but we're taking the public comments on both and the discussion of council on both at the same time.
Okay.
Other comments by council members?
Mr. President.
I saw Ms. Graziano's hand first, Ms. Trammell, but I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a couple of remarks. Referendums should be used sparingly, and I think indeed historically that has been the use in Richmond, the case in Richmond. Personally, I do not feel that we should have a referendum on a land use issue because these issues are very involved and one needs to know lots of facts, which I think the public needs to know before moving forward. I think that personally I am not for the ballpark in the boulevard, at the boulevard or in the bottom. I don't have any facts on either location, and until I have the facts, I cannot make an intelligent decision, just as the public cannot make an intelligent decision until they have the facts. But I think when we have the facts on the boulevard versus the bottom, we have other issues that need to be examined, which we could not do in a referendum. One is, do we want to have a new stadium? And who pays for it? That's a discussion that has to be had, whether it's in the bottom or it's on the boulevard. Is it a regional stadium, or does the city build the stadium? Is it an economic driver for the city of Richmond, or does it lose money for the city of Richmond? I think those are a few of the community conversations that we need to have. And I don't think that we can have those conversations on a referendum. I think those are conversations once we have two plans, and I think we need two plans. Once we have two plans, we need to go to the public. We need to go into every district. We need to have community meetings. We need to have the input of the citizens, but we have to have the information to give them before they can give us an informed input. And so for those reasons, I will vote against this referendum. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Graziano. Other comments by council member? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Trammell.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, we sit up here, all 9 of us, and we represent the people of our districts. And also we represent the people of the city, the whole city. So why not let the people have their say in November? Government's supposed to be for the people, by the people. And if you come out there in November to vote, you'd be able to vote for this, yes or no. And when you're not allowing the people to come out to have their voices be heard, that says something that we're not paying attention to you all. And as people have come down here and said before, yeah, this is the 3rd meeting that we've had in reference to this. But I've had so many citizens call me and say, we can't get down there at 5 o'clock. We can't get there at 3 o'clock. We can't even get there at 6 o'clock if we don't have transportation. And then sometimes we don't get out of the council meeting until 11, 12 o'clock at night. Until, you know, whatever time we hear the paper that you all want to speak on. So a lot of times your voices are not heard. A lot of times we don't, you know, you all can't always email us because many people don't have computers.
Many times you can't get in touch with us because our voicemails are full, and we get so many calls like I've had in reference to this. And I thank the people of my 8th district for coming down here tonight to speak. And it also needs to be said that it was Charles, Parker, and myself that voted for tonight for you all. And my colleagues, every one of us voted for you all to have a say tonight, to be able to speak in reference to this. And I just want to say that I think this should pass. I think my colleagues should hear you all loud and clear, that you all want to have your say in November in reference to this paper. And again, thank you all for coming here, speaking for in support of the paper.
Thank you, Mr. Trammell. Other comments by council members? No other comments? All right. Then it'll come back to the president.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, I believe I saw Mr. Agelasto's hand.
Oh, if the rules of council provide that everybody has to have the opportunity to speak before other council members that have spoken get a second bite at the apple.
Has he not spoken?
He has spoken. That's why I'm asking, does anybody else have anything to say before we go back to Mr. Agelasto?
Mr. President.
Mr. Hilbert.
A point of order here. I believe that these two papers were called together as opposed to separately. So to Mr. Agelasto's point, I would think it would take a motion to, as I heard it, these papers were called together, and to have a separate vote on them, it seems like to me would be out of order.
I don't believe so. Council President has the opportunity or the authority to call in a section or to divide for a vote.
I appreciate that you have that authority. However, when you stated these, I heard it that you were calling the papers together. I would assume that it could be the prerogative of the president to change his mind, but I heard that these papers were called together.
Yes, sir. Called together for public comment and for discussion, voted on individually.
Okay, I heard the papers called as one, but like I said, it's your prerogative. According to the rules, I believe that you can change your mind on that, but I thought that these papers were called together. So that was my point of order. I'd be happy to hear from Mr. Agelasto, and then I'll have some comments after that if the president would allow me to do so.
Well, let's see who hasn't had the opportunity to speak first, and then we'll come back around to those who have. Mr. Beliles.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm happy to support Mr. Hilbert's motion earlier to allow everybody that came down here the opportunity to speak. However, I'd like to second some of what Councilwoman Graziano said about the ability to make an informed decision from every perspective, whether you're a citizen or a city council member. I think there are a number of ways for the public to engage this body, the mayor's administration, their neighborhood association. We get them usually through emails, phone calls, and the occasional threat. But to this point, so far, it's been very civil. This is a passionate issue that people feel very deeply about, and they have strong opinions, as they should. However, there's nothing worse than going into a voting booth and not knowing who you're voting for or what you're voting for. And I really think, I said this last Monday, the 2007-2008 master plan process was the model I think we should follow here. I can't support a stadium in Shockoe or Manchester Boulevard because I haven't seen a plan for any of those. Could end up in Henrico for all we know. And I'm not saying one place is better than the other, but the master plan process was a chance to have the public engage. We all learned a new word back then. It's called charrette, and they had dozens of them, and they had them on weekends, they had them on evenings. They were open from 9 to 5. People could pop in on their lunch hour and say, tell me about this downtown master plan process. That process was so beneficial because people learned about what was going on, but they also had a chance to add their input. I think this is, a great idea, or I think this is silly, or they thought of some things that the planners hadn't considered, and they were incorporated into the plan. I think we need a plan or a set of plans, options, before we do anything. And that's what I see as a valuable way to move forward, because that type of engagement is far more valuable than just going in and voting. Voting is important, as it always is, but this is a real opportunity for everybody to learn not only whatever plan is put forth is, but also how we all can make it better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beliles. Anybody else wish to make comment before we go back to Mr. Agelasto? Dr. Newbill? Oh, I'm sorry. Vice President Robertson nudged me a minute ago. But you're next, Dr. Newbill.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm grateful for the opportunity to hear from some citizens that we did not hear from at the committee meeting a week ago, as well as to hear again from some of you that had an opportunity to speak then. What I did hear, for clarity from many of you, even those that spoke in opposition to the referendum or the papers that are before us, one of the things that I have heard very clearly is your concern and in some cases, in many cases, your direct opposition to a stadium in Shockoe Bottom. I've also heard your statements regarding your reasons for your opposition, that Richmond needs to recognize the historic significance of Shockoe Bottom, and that we need to preserve that and also create venues by which we celebrate the history of Shockoe Bottom. And I think that has been made very clear on each occasion, that this issue of what we would do as far as a stadium in Shockoe Bottom has been suggested. What I think about the paper that is before us is that it accomplished one objective, and that is to ensure that the location on the boulevard is reserved for the building of a stadium and to be used for no other use but a stadium. At the present time, as some of my colleagues have already said, we have no information from anyone, from developers, from the administration, or anyone else as it relates to the proposal of building a stadium, redeveloping a stadium, modifying the stadium that is currently at the boulevard. There is no information that we have received in any way whatsoever as it relates to the stadium. We all know that there has been lots of discussion about the need for a stadium and the requests for the current team that they need a new stadium, and we've entertained that. However, there has not been any presentation to this council as it relates to how we would go about achieving that objective. We have not had any presentations on any options of locations of where that stadium would be placed. It has been stated earlier as a part of the introduction to these papers that there are a lot of assumptions that have been made. I'm not sure if I know exactly where those assumptions come from, and I would assume they come from different sources. But one thing is for certain, and that is, it has been suggested that unless this paper goes to the ballot for a referendum, it is suggested that we don't think that the citizens have the intellect to be able to make a wise decision. I appreciate that. However, we trust the citizens every day that we have a voting to make a choice. And so we've demonstrated in this country that we trust the electoral process and citizens' right and intellect to make decisions at the ballot. And I support that. However, I am a little concerned that if this issue of a stadium being restricted to the boulevard as the site only for development by referendum, and we assume that between now and the election, that we will get sufficient information and the citizens would be adequately informed as to vote to support this referendum or vote against this referendum based on information from whatever sources that are available. We are often challenged when it comes to election time, and we are often accused right here in this chamber that as elected officials, we are persuaded by the development community. Well, if we put this on the ballot as a referendum, who's going to make that choice as to whether or not the boulevard is the right location? Who's going to be the voice that's speaking to the public? Is this council going to be the voice that is recommending you because we've evaluated all the proposals that have come before us and we've asked the tough questions and you've had an opportunity to be involved in those questions being asked and answered, and you've had an opportunity throughout this process? I don't think so. I'm not sure that that is the process that will be followed. However, what we ask as a part of this paper being stricken by a vote of 6-3 at the last meeting is that we would ask the administration, we ask our staff to ensure that the administration prepare proposals and present those to council, and that we promise that we would take them throughout the city. We would have public hearings. We would give you opportunities to have input, as Councilman Blouse has mentioned, as it relates to the same process that we use with the master plan for the riverfront, and that we would take your ideas and we would incorporate all of those ideas in the process of making a recommendation that satisfies your concerns about Shockoe Bottom, your concerns about the historic significance of that location, if such a proposal is presented for that site, as well as the boulevard or any other site that perhaps is proposed as a part of this process. That's what I support. That is the reason why I don't support the referendum, and I would hope that we would have the opportunity to give you a full-fledged opportunity to be engaged and for us to use the resources that we have available to evaluate and review and ask tough questions of anything that is proposed in the process, so that as citizens, you still will have that opportunity to know that the administration and this council has vetted every opportunity, and you've had ample opportunities throughout the city on multiple occasions at different times that is available to you for your input to be included in the decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Robertson. Any other public comment prior to, or excuse me, any other council member comment prior to coming back to Mr. Agelasto?
Cynthia.
Dr. Newbill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think first I would like to be absolutely clear that without fail, each member of this council, as evidenced by our earlier unanimous vote to have a public hearing on these papers, in voting, do say that we want, value, and always want to hear from the citizens of this city on all matters pertaining to the city. So that's number one. Number two, for me, even if we were going to go the route of formulating a referendum to address this proposed baseball stadium development, which you, President, have already indicated we have no presentation or information on, the current referendum as drafted really does not have information that citizens would need to really be able to make any informed decision about any viable options, because we don't have the information, so the referendum doesn't capture any information that would allow for really informed decision-making. The current referendums as drafted, referendum in paper, lack clarity, again, and options that one could consider, whether it's this council or the citizens, for any locations for a baseball diamond. It's just not there. The information is not there, whether it's in a referendum or not. I think going back to some of the prior comments about referendums on land use raises a real issue for us and for me. And in all fairness, referendums are not necessarily the most effective way to seek public comment and feedback, informed public comment and feedback. Community conversations, charrettes, whether they're 1 day or 7 day, are much more viable options for receiving real citizen input, not only on yes, no on a particular item, but where. We don't want it here, but where might you want it? You don't want it to be any number of things, but what might you want? That level of dialogue and feedback and advice we don't have the opportunity to receive as these two papers are currently crafted. And I would like to separate the issue and concerns about the referendum and what they do or don't allow citizens to have input on, because we don't have information to provide, as I said, referendums and papers that really reflect the options. These papers don't capture the position of council here. We don't have the papers to make a decision. Though I'm going to speak for myself, I am committed to safeguarding the historical inventory, the history, the legacy, the significance of all that is in Shockoe Bottom that has importance for this city, this Commonwealth, this nation, and this world. And that is separate and apart from this referendum, which does not capture options for us to entertain on placing this diamond or this development anyplace. I want to have that be separate. Somehow folks perceive that not pursuing this referendum for reasons that we've articulated suggests a position relative to the location of this diamond, and it does not. It absolutely does not. And especially in light of the fact that we absolutely don't have presentations on options for where it would be. But I do want to say that I hear clearly, and am committed to that history, that legacy that is in that location in this city and in this community. Again, that's to be separated from the referendums, which don't provide opportunity for citizens to have real decisioning. If we're wanting real advice and real decisioning, then we need to have real public hearings where citizens can be engaged, look at the presentations, be able to dialogue about those, where, what, when, any of that, which these two papers will not allow for at this time as currently crafted. Because again, as you've said, we don't have the proposals to even be able to capture in written form for citizens to be able to respond to any papers of referendum. So again, I want to be clear that not going in favor of a referendum does not suggest at all the position of anybody on this body, as opposed to real issue with the referendum itself and what it does or does not capture that allows for real, authentic citizen input, comment on these matters and this particular development in this city.
Thank you, Dr. Newbell. Ms. Mosby.
I would just like to say, in reference to the things that I've heard tonight, I hear you. I hear you. A lot of my 9th district doesn't come because they recognize that I hear them. I do what I say I'm going to do, and they understand that. If they tell it to me, they know that I will try my best to fight to help them get the things that they need. So a lot of times you don't see a whole long list of 9th district people because they understand that their council representative, she listens and she hears them, and she's going to do the best that she can to make good decisions. I've listened to our president say that there have been those that have said the people don't understand. Well, I don't know who said that, but I can say prior to January 2nd, I was the people. So I don't understand that thought process. I wasn't always this. I was you. So I understand that you have your concerns. I get it. Secondly, I've heard about the history of Shockoe Bottle. I understand that as well. However, I do need us to make some points about our history. We have a Martin Luther King that died so that we could vote, we could be together, we could commingle. I could sit beside Kathy, Kathy could sit beside me. However, somewhere in there, we have lost it as a people. We're so concerned about the area. Are we getting our children to understand what the area means? We need to be working as a people to make sure that these schools that are built have something historic in them. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Stomp the Yard, but in there they had a wall of Black history. Our children don't have a clue who Malcolm X is. He's now Malcolm 10. Martin Luther King, they don't have a clue to what he fought for. So where we're so concerned about land, we need to get concerned about our young people and how we're going to get them to understand what the history is all about. I just went to a funeral in North Carolina. My aunt was the historian person of our family, but she's gone. And so now we have to come up with a new plan because history can't die. We have to come up with some things to make it move forward. And we have to begin to look at things and make them move forward so our young people can understand what history is about. It's not just the land. It's what happened. And our kids don't get it. And we have done a disservice to stand and fight about land, and we're not getting those young people to understand what Martin Luther King and what Maggie Walker and all of these people, what they stood for. This is a waste of time to me about a piece of land, and we're not making sure our young people get it. We're missing it. We're missing the boat. I'm not for the referendum because I don't believe I have enough information to give you. However, I can't tell you I'm for it being in the bottom. What I'm saying is, wherever it is, we need to make sure that our young people get this history that we keep talking about. My baby needs to understand it. Your children need to understand the history, not just that place. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mosby. Any other public? Well, I guess we've gone around to everyone. So, Mr. Agelasto.
Thank you, Council President. And I really appreciate everybody making comments and coming back to me. I appreciate that very much. And Councilwoman Mosby, I think your comments are very poignant. I mean, we got, as this body, working with our school board, we got to make sure that education is the focus for the future. And yet we get hung up on these issues time and time and time again. As one speaker said, it's been 13 years talking about a ballpark, 13 years. Have people not been presented plans? Have they not had the opportunity to do their research? Have they not had the opportunity to make their voices heard time and time and time again? And at what point do people who are elected, who sit here in a leadership position, take the act to say, we heard you, and now it's just time to close the chapter and move forward so that we can get to the more critical work that we have for this city. And I think that's perhaps what Council President Samuels has been trying to do with the resolution, is to let's at least put some bookends on what's happening and move beyond this. And I understand the concern about not having plans and presentations. Has anybody even told us that they're working on this? I mean, how much of the effort of city employees is being spent and exhausted, how much city resources, and we're the ones who signed for the budget, how much of city resources are being spent on something we have no knowledge of? And shouldn't we be asking the more critical questions? And if we're not asking the critical questions, then I believe we got to start setting some direction. And if setting direction means, okay, we make land use policy and we want this land to be used in such and such fashion, I get it. You know, we don't want for the public to go through a referendum to set that. That's our authority. So I get that. You know, I have a very delicate balance of trying to figure out this referendum or the ordinance. Frankly, I'd rather just vote up the ordinance and let the referendum go away. I don't think anybody who came to speak for the referendum would object to us saying, yeah, we're going to support baseball on the boulevard. And I misspoke at the organizational development meeting. Baseball on the boulevard has an 80-year history. That's pretty substantial. Not many locations get to boast 80 years of baseball on the same site. And every single one of us on council, we went to the grand opening of the Redskins today, over on Lee Street. And you know what was said to me at that time? Wow, look at how quickly we were able to do something and get something built, and it's going to be an attraction for the whole city, and it's going to bring in revenue. And they said, gosh, the last time that this was accomplished by city council was when they built the diamond in 1985, and it was built between seasons. It was built in 4 months. Somebody, this body, took decisive action and moved forward pretty expeditiously with a plan. And right now, nobody's presenting plans and nobody's trying to set direction for planning. And personally, I think it's time that we stand up and say, all right, maybe we don't have a referendum, but we have an ordinance before us. And maybe we vote on the ordinance and set some direction so that our staff, the city's resources are spent in a very efficient and effective fashion so that we can accomplish our goals. I think right now we are still in this reactionary mode. I think the public is still in a very much reactionary mode. That happens when you don't have information. Let's turn the tides. Let's become proactive. Let's set it and just get it done if this is the will of the body. I do have a couple of questions that, if I may, I'll ask the city attorney.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. In 2003, there was an ordinance adopted, ordinance number 2003-280-244, in which all this is during the time of debate over where the ballpark is going to go, and City Council adopted this ordinance to set aside $18 million for the renovation of the diamond. This ordinance, as far as I can tell, has not been repealed. Therefore, is it still an active ordinance, and does it therefore set direction? And if it requires additional time to look at this, my preference would be to perhaps continue these until July 22nd.
Mr. Agelasto, I don't necessarily disagree with you one bit. Maybe if you'd let me rephrase the question to the city attorney. Mr. Jackson, if a paper by council is passed and not repealed, does it remain law?
Sometimes.
Barring...
It depends on the paper, and now that I've gotten my computer to let me see the paper that you're referring to, Mr. Agelasto, is a paper that authorized the execution of an agreement that involved certain improvements. Once that agreement was executed, once the agreement was performed, the ordinance became of no practical effect.
has this ordinance been executed? Was there an $18 million renovation of the diamond?
The ordinance does not refer to $18 million. It doesn't refer to any specific amount. It simply refers to certain financial assistance being provided to the RMA relating to the financing of improvements, renovations, and upgrades to the diamond. It may, in fact, have been $18 million, but the ordinance itself merely authorizes execution of an agreement.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, just for clarification, could you state the year of that again, please?
2003. And I'm just seeing that the projected cost of the renovations is not to exceed $18.5 million. That's my question, essentially. Now, Mr. Jackson, I do have a second question, and apologize for being relatively new, but we have an ordinance before us. Can an ordinance be easily amended to become a resolution? If we're going to vote on the land use issue as an ordinance, is it easily adopted to become a resolution?
It would require amendment and re-advertising. I'm not quite sure what specific action you're proposing. It might even be best, as is often the case when you make such a significant change, simply to reintroduce a new paper. But I don't know exactly what you're proposing.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I would request that we vote on these two, the resolution and the ordinance, as separate. Council President, thank you.
Yes, sir. All right. Council has had their say. Does anybody else want to say something again?
Mr. President.
Mr. Hilbert.
This proposal to have a referendum, certainly everyone wants to hear from the public. I know that I do. But the fact is that what do we have in front of us? We don't have a plan. I'd like to see plans before this body. And ironically, I believe that if this referendum is put on the table, that you're going to shut down the conversation, that no one is going to put together a proposal with a referendum hanging over the situation. But we need to get proposals, and we need to have choices, and we need them sooner rather than later. So there's been a lot of discussion around City Hall about various proposals that may or may not be forthcoming. I think they need to be forthcoming as soon as possible. But I think it all boils down to what somebody, one of my constituents said to me very plainly, and that was, Chris, what are we paying you for? And it seems like to me that that is pretty to the heart of the matter, that we're paid to do a job, and this would be part of it. And certainly we want to hear from you. I know I do. But we have a job up here, me and my 8 colleagues, and I suggest that we get to it, and this referendum is only going to delay that process, and therefore I will be voting against both the referendum and the ordinance. Because tonight I made a motion that we all hear from you, and it would seem to me that by locking this location in, that we're afraid to hear other proposals. Just as if we had voted to strike this paper, we'd be afraid to hear from you. I'm not afraid of anyone's ideas. I want it expanded, but I believe everyone has said we need to get something going. And ironically, as I said, I believe this referendum would actually shut the conversation down. And we need some choices, and I'm asking that Mr. Mayor and Mr. Marshall to look at proposals in a very short term and try and bring those forward so that we will have a choice on this matter. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Hilbert. Last call. All right. Seeing no other council members, I will have my last bite at the apple, and it's long. Thomas Jefferson once said that the basis of our government being the opinion of the people, the very first object should be to keep that right. 6 months before that, he said, I am not among those who fear the people. They and not the rich are our dependents for a continued freedom. And he hits on the very purpose of the referendum in these two quotes. When I was explaining to one of my constituents the arguments against the referendum and said the thing about we're hired to do a job and, it's too complex for people to understand, the constituent responded, well, it's good to know we elected our council members to make our decisions for us instead of representing us. And I told her that that wasn't necessarily the case, that everybody can have a different opinion on the referendum. And what you've seen here tonight is a fairly passionate issue. I mean, we're talking centuries of history. We are talking the possibility of a tipping point as the population of Richmond grows as to where tourists will come, where baseball will be played, and where people will come in solemn remembrance of their ancestors. But we did it tonight without being disagreeable with each other. Mr. Beliles and I, Mr. Hilbert and I, not to single out anybody in particular, but we tend to agree on 75, 90% of the things, and we disagree on this, and that's okay. We're not meant to walk lockstep with each other. Be nice about one, but at the same time, we're not meant to walk in lockstep with each other. We're meant to have debate up here. We're meant to decide what we believe is right to do for the best interest of the city and its citizens. In this case, I believe it's the best interest of the citizens to tell us what they want in the most forceful way possible. Now, charrettes are great. I've held two and participated in many more, and they can have a wonderful outcome. But a citizen's voice, it's difficult for it to be more strong than its vote. And that's why I think the referendum is a good idea. Last time I ran for city council, one of my slogans was, it's not me, it's we. We're in this together. We rise and fall together. And when I did my charrettes on the boulevard, when I did my charrettes in the Carver neighborhood, when I participated in charrettes, that's always been my focus, is not what I want, but what we as a community agree is best for the city. I believe that people should have a major say in the location of baseball, not just because it's technically the only legal question I could ask, but because it starts the conversation. When you think about what we've discussed in the past 3 years about baseball, it's hardly been a peep. We all talked about needing one maybe, or how it should be funded maybe, but nothing real, no major conversation. Since this referendum has started up, I would say the majority of us on council have received, well, more emails and phone calls than I can count, not only on my fingers and toes, but that I could count on all my council people's fingers and toes. And I think that shows that when you think you have an opportunity to have real say, it gives citizens a buy-in. It makes them believe their voice is going to be heard, and it is going to be heard in a referendum. It engages folks in the process. And what better way to empower people to capture their attention and to really get them excited about something than to genuinely listen to their voice and their vote? So what do we hear tonight? We heard people in favor and against the referendum. We heard people in favor and against where the baseball stadium should go, how it should be paid for, whether or not the region should be involved. But what I honestly heard is that we shouldn't ignore what the people want. And regardless of how the referendum goes, I heard that from my 8 council people. We don't want to ignore what you say. When you look at the debate and the discussion tonight, I think you see the value of a referendum. You think of the value of a major discussion that comes with a referendum. Sure, we don't have any proposals on the table right now. But if you know there's going to be a referendum and you have a desire about where the stadium should go, how it should be funded, whether or not the region as a whole should be involved, for the first time, we have a reason to get energized and to really fight for what we believe in, regardless of which way we think or where we think it ought to go, regardless of how somebody thinks it ought to be paid for, regardless of whether or not it should even happen. We get people involved and we set a deadline where they know there's going to be a primary or a preliminary decision. Referendums can allow citizens to hear the information, to discuss and question the information, and to think about it before they come to a decision. It's crucial that we do this with the baseball stadium questions, no matter how we do it. I just want to clear up a couple of little things. First of all, the referendum, as it's worded, is not fun to read. Unfortunately, in order to make it legal, we had to craft it in such a way that it says, do you want city-owned property outside of basically the general area where the stadium is now to not be allowed to be used for a baseball stadium? So basically, if you want to keep baseball on the boulevard, vote yes. If you don't, vote no. I knew that we would not have the ability to ask the money questions. I know that we don't have the ability to force Chesterfield or Henrico to have a referendum. But I also knew that by putting the question out there, we'd start a community dialogue that hopefully would run for months. In a few seconds, we're going to take the vote. And whatever happens with that vote, I think it's important to realize, one, every council member said they want to hear from you. They may not agree with me on how they want to hear from you or the best process for hearing from you, but they all want to hear from you, and they've said they want to hear from you in very real, tangible ways. And I think that's something that we should look on this council with appreciation. And I do want to point out one last time. When I first got on city council, people would joke with me and say that it was better than a sitcom, it was better than a drama, that they watched it for its comedic value. We had some major issues to discuss since we've been on council together. And I think this council, agreeing or disagreeing with each other, has made it our passion to be professional, to be honest, to be earnest with you and with each other. And I'm thrilled to have an opportunity to sit up here with these other 8 people, regardless of their vote tonight. So, having said that, Madam Clerk, would you please call the question on number 21?
On number 19 or 21?
21 first, please.
21. Council is voting on item number 21, resolution number 2013-R157. Mr. Beliles?
No.
Ms. Graziano?
No.
Ms. Mosby?
No.
Vice President Robertson?
No.
Mr. Agelasto?
Yes.
Mr. Hilbert?
No.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Newbill?
No.
President Samuels?
Aye.
That paper has not been adopted.
Can we please move on to paper number 19?
Item 19 is ordinance number 2013-143. Mr. Beliles?
No.
Ms. Graziano?
No.
Ms. Mosby?
No.
Vice President Robertson?
No.
Mr. Agelasto?
Yes.
Mr. Hilbert?
No.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Newbill?
No.
President Samuels?
Aye.
That paper has not been adopted.
Thank you very much, and thanks to everybody that came out to speak on either side. We appreciate it. Madam Clerk, I believe the next order of business tonight is the motions to amend and continue.
Yes, we have 2 motions to consider. Both are for item number 3, which is ordinance number 2013-111. That is to set aside 44 parking spaces to the underground parking deck at 900 East Broad Street for Council Chief of Staff and the City Attorney. And the first proposed amendment to that paper is as follows. Page 1, line 4, after the word aside, delete the number 44 and insert the text 13. additional. Page 1, line 6, after the word occupy, delete the number 40 and insert the word 9. Page 1, line 18, after the word council, delete the text, has determined that it is in the best interests of the city of Richmond that, and insert the text and its staff currently have assigned for their use. Page 1, line 19, after the word of, delete the number 44 and insert the number 18. Page 2, line 2, after the word works, delete the comma and insert the semicolon and the word and. Page 2, line 3, at the beginning of the line, insert the words, whereas the council has determined that it is in the best interest of the city of Richmond that 13 additional parking spaces in such parking deck. Page 2, line 8, after the word ordinance, delete the number 44 and insert the number 13. After the word spaces, insert a comma. Page 2, line 9, at the beginning of the line, insert the text in addition to the 18 parking spaces previously assigned to the city council and its staff. Page 2, line 13, after the word occupy, delete the number 40 and insert the word 9. I will need to have a motion to accept the amendment to that paper as read. Mr. Hilbert, will you make the motion to accept the amendment to that paper as read and to continue the paper until July the 22nd?
Ms. Capel, before a motion is made there, Ms. Trammell has a point of order?
Okay.
Or Dr. Newbill has a point of order?
Thank you, Councilwoman Trammell. Mr. President, I just want to be absolutely clear that we are getting the total number of spaces that Councilwoman Trammell indicated, and I thought that number was 15. Coming out of the committee meeting, it was 13, and then there was an amendment to that to take it to 15, was my understanding. Is that accurate? In terms of what you read, I'm trying to make sure we get to what she was asking for.
That is correct. That motion that I just read was the committee's motion, and the next motion, which will indicate 15 spaces, is Councilor Trammell's motion.
Oh, you're going to read it?
Yes, I'm going to.
I got you. I'm sorry. I was trying to listen for the 15.
This motion that was just read is actually the committee's motion for 13 spaces.
I
and the next
got you. So you're doing that first.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And this is just the motion to amend. If we want to vote on Ms. Trammell's in a positive manner and on this one in a negative manner, I think Ms. Trammell would be greatly appreciative. Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Sorry for the confusion there. Please continue.
Yes, I will need a motion to accept the amendment to that paper. Ms. Newbill, will you make that motion?
So moved.
Council is voting on Councilor Newbill's motion to accept the amendments as read to item number 3, ordinance number 2013-111 for 13 parking spaces. Mr. Beliles?
There's two ways of going about this,
Yes,
Dr. Newbill. I just want you to be clear.
And I want to go the alternate route of voting on the motion that was entered by Councilwoman Trammell subsequent to the Governmental Ops Committee meeting, because that has the correct number.
Right. So what we'll do is we'll vote down these amendments.
That's correct. That's
and then we'll vote up Ms. Trammell's, Lord willing.
Okay.
Thank you. No, I believe Ms. Trammell would appreciate a no vote on these amendments and a yes vote on hers.
Would that be correct, Ms. Trammell?
Sorry for the multiple points of information in order. Madam Clerk, would you please do the roll call?
Yes. Ms. Graziano?
No.
Ms. Mosby?
No.
Vice President Robertson? Mr. Agelasto? Mr. Hilbert?
No.
Ms. Trammell?
No.
Ms. Newbill?
No.
President Samuels?
No.
That paper has not been adopted. Moving on to the next motion for the same paper. The proposed amendment to item number 3, ordinance number 2013-111 is as follows. Page 1, line 4, after the word aside, delete the number 44 and insert the text 15 additional. Page 1, line 6, after the word occupy, delete the number 40 and insert the number 11. Page 1, line 18, after the word council, delete the text has determined that it is in the best interest of the city of Richmond that, and insert the text and its staff currently have assigned for their use. Page 1, line 19, after the word of, delete the number 44 and insert the number 18. Page 2, line 2, after the word works, delete the comma and insert a semicolon and the word and. Page 2, line 3, at the beginning of the line, insert the words, whereas the council has determined that it is in the best interest of the city of Richmond that 15 additional parking spaces in such parking deck. Page 2, line 8, after the word ordinance, delete the number 44 and insert the number 15. After the word spaces, insert a comma. Page 2, line 9, at the beginning of the line, insert the text, in addition to the 18 parking spaces previously assigned to the city council and its staff. Page 2, line 13, after the word occupied, delete the number 40 and insert the number 11. I will need a motion to accept the proposed amendment to that paper as read and to continue that paper to Monday, July the 22nd. Ms. Mosby, will you make that motion?
So moved, Madam Clerk.
Council is voting on Councilor Mosby's motion to accept the amendment to item number 3, ordinance number 2013-111 as read. Mr. Beliles?
Aye.
Ms. Graziano?
Aye.
Ms. Mosby?
Aye.
Vice President Robertson? Mr. Hilbert?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Newbill?
Aye.
Mr. Agelasto?
This is for the amendment for 15, aye.
President Samuels?
Aye. And Vice President Robertson came in if you want to get her.
Vice President Robertson. That amendment has been adopted, and that paper will be before you again on Monday, July the 22nd.
Thank you. I believe that's all for the motions or the amended motions.
That is correct.
At this point, I'd like to move on to the citizen comment period. When you hear your name called, if you'd please come down. I'm going to try this for a couple of meetings, and if it works, great. If it doesn't work, we'll go back to the old way. But I'm going to ask the clerk to call all the names. When you hear your name called, if you'd come up and form a line, we'd greatly appreciate it.
W.B. Braxton Bantu, Ray Neblett, L. Shirley Harvey, Roderick Bullock, Fatima Muhammad.
I believe it's Fatah Muhammad.
Fatah Muhammad, I apologize.
All right. Mr. Braxton Bantu, you were first who called in, so please come down to the microphone.
Yes, sir.
And Ms. Harvey, since you're the only person that's here, you can have a seat. I just was, in case there was a big line, I was trying to make sure people were ready. Thank you. Mr. Braxton Bantu.
Yes, sir. Good evening, greetings, and a belated Independence Day, and City Council, its President, and good audience. I return as I did mention. I'm W.B. Braxton Bantu, Scout Leader Bat, and an adamant advocate and unsung hero for the poor and downtrodden of the city. Since the fall and closing of the Freedom House, April 30th, 2013, with the imminent relocating of Central Intake, the only remaining entity at the Conrad Center, this waking nightmare of the poor on the streets will become more of a waking nightmare by this year's October. One, there is a need for a warming station or some sort of morning drop-in shelter when Caritas and the cold temperature turn their guests out at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. In the past, guests would have boarded a white Chevy van with the assistance of cap-up to be transported to the Conrad Center for such sanctuary. The matrix of that situation will have changed very much so. Two, there is a need for transportation for guests to be transported to the new location wherever Central Intake may have relocated. The new site may be farther away, another complexity to be added. Reverend T.E. Nelson, many thanks for his renewing the contract of 6 Mount Zion Baptist Church, may not renew it this time. I've heard that he does not like DSS requiring or extorting shelter guests to seek a referral for a temperature-conditional shelter. The other complexity, Caritas may not add another site to its already 2 sites currently operating, potentially about 40 vacancies plus another 40 vacancies, and possibly another 40 vacancies to that, may be the cause of fierce competition for shelter for the existing vacancies. 3, I thank and make honorable mention of the Salvation Army for assuming the serving of breakfasts and dinner.
You have 30 seconds. Please begin to summarize.
Very well. At the 2 West Grace Street, and honorable mention to DM and his captain. I thank the Daily Planet at 517 West Grace Street that is prepared to employ its 15-passenger minibus, but they require $25,000 that this council may be able to grant them. Please phone the Daily Planet at 804-783-678 and inquire for the extension for CEO Peter Prizio or Susan Suzerki. And there's a small church called Alpha and Omega Bible Church at 2944 West Marshall Street, and its mother church, First Baptist. They also have 2 vehicles that they're willing to employ. I should have to return to another date to inform City Council and its concerned compassionate audience of the developing crises for the poor on the street.
Thank you.
Ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Braxton Bantu. Would you like to summarize with 1 sentence?
That's why I was able to say I have to return, because this is developing crises, and I've outlined the major ones.
Thank you.
And with the warming station is a necessity. It could be a DSS, but they may require extra money to open up from 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening, including Mondays through Friday, including weekends and major holidays. Transportation is a major issue.
Because there's still so much that you still need to say. Crystal Anitis is in the back. Ms. Robertson tried to get down those numbers, but we couldn't get all of them between the 2 of us. If you could give those to her, and she will write down that information to make sure that council has it so that we can take care of some of these things. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Ms. Harvey.
Ms. My name is L. Shirley Harvey, and today is July 8th, 2013, a very special day in history for me. I am an accountant. Real accountants don't just add and subtract. They know how to figure things out. As a general accountant, program accountant, and cost accountant for IBM, where I was also elected to the IBM Club with several awards. As an accountant for the state of Virginia, where I conceived and implemented the Correctional Enterprises cost accounting system. As an investigator with the Division of Consumer Affairs with a background in accounting, where I was honored with the Suggestion Award by L. Douglas Wilder, Governor. As an Internal Revenue representative, where I was privileged to assist taxpayers with their tax returns and earned 2 Suggestion Awards, which are still in use by every tax filer today. As a former Richmond City Council member who knows what you are doing, I am still an accountant who knows how to figure. However, I cannot figure out why you as servants, and most of you elected by the people of your district, would turn your backs on these same people who gave you power over them. Last city council meeting, you had little comment for the woman who was hurt because of an uneven sidewalk. You relegated Bishop Robinson concerning his $400 ridiculous water bill to the same woman he had already talked to. But you really got excited when Mr. Hatcher called the mayor a jackleg preacher. Then you put on the consent agenda an item that exempted a large firm from taxes. You rushed a paper that provided tax-free bonds for wealthy people. My mother, Eunice Viola Waken Bruton Gregory Horton, always told me, haste makes waste. You You did this to expedite a paper for corporations. Corporations do not vote, so why are you going along with them? There can only be 3 reasons. 1, you believe the corporations and the rich can keep you powerful. 2, you have been offered money.
You have 30
3,
seconds. Please
you are just plain ignorant. The Bible says that when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn. Do you hear us? We're crying and screaming to you, trying to make you understand that we don't like what you're doing. Please do this for me. Put the water bill, the gas bill, the solid waste fee on a referendum so we can vote on that.
Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Fatal Muhammad, the President of Council of Peoples. I'm here grateful, thankful to what y'all have offered me through my council person, Reva Trammell. I come to thank y'all for this, and then all the picture of you all who signed to this year. I thank you all for that. And I appreciate, that y'all do recognize people who are trying to do something in the community against crime. We have walked in every neighborhood in this city of Richmond, and we have fought hard to stop the violence. But we thank y'all for blessing us with that. But anyway, I have another thing I would like to say. Saudi Arabia, they should track this guy down to kill these babies and then set the phone fire. I don't know why you don't see it in the news that Saudi Arabia and the rest of these countries that allow these people who use the name Islam to kill these babies and burn them up. They should track them down and do what they need to do with them. Thank you all for this year.
Thank you, Mohammed. Mohammed, thank you for all that you do. I mean, you've been out here, we met, in 1996, walking in Blackwell, Oak Grove, the Jefferson Davis corridor, and, I mean, you taught me how to fight. You taught me how to not to be quiet. And I'll never forget that, you and little Rosa Jones. So thank you for all that you do. You're still out here fighting after all these years. And thank you for coming down here tonight to honor all 9 of us and to tell us all thank you, especially some of the stuff that we had to hear tonight in reference to things that are not true, because we're not stupid. And we do listen to the people. And thank you. And God, you be blessed.
Appreciate it. I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Trammell. All right, Ms. Clerk, would you mind calling the other names just to make sure they didn't come back in? I don't see anybody, just to be safe.
Ray Neblett. Roderick Bullock.
Okay.
Roderick Bullock.
No, we tried. At this point, citizen comment period being over, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, would you please give us a review on what's on tonight's consent agenda?
The consent agenda items are as follows. Item 5, ordinance number 2013-124, to amend the city code to relocate and establish a new polling place for precinct 610. Item 6, ordinance number 2013-125, to amend the city code for the purpose of establishing a new precinct boundaries between precincts 503 and 505. Item 7, ordinance number 2013-131, to authorize the issuance of general obligation public improvement bonds for the city of Richmond in the maximum principal amount of $11,250,000 to finance the cost of school projects and general capital improvement projects of the city. Item 8, ordinance number 2013-132, to amend the ordinance which closed the public use and travel a portion of Virginia Street located between East Carey Street and an alley known as Exchange Alley for the purpose of extending the deadline for compliance with the requirements of such ordinance. Item 9, ordinance number 2013-135, to close the public use and travel a portion of 8th Street Connector located in the block bounded by South 8th Street, Basin Bank Street, South 9th Street, and East Canal Street. Item 13, resolution number 2013-R153, to dispense with the regular meeting of council during the month of August. Item 14, resolution number 2013-R154, to appoint Jean B. Capel to the position of city clerk. Those are all the items on tonight's consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there those in the audience tonight that wish to speak in opposition to any item on the consent agenda?
The name is Donald Hatcher. I'm amazed at the fact that you want to build a building down there on 8th Street, bound by, what is it, 7th and 8th, and you just passed the ordinance to build that building, and now you come changing the street. With the matter of the streets being closed, or the streets not being used, or the streets being changed, was all that before the building was approved to be constructed down there? It seems to me when you're coming off the Manchester Bridge now, you're going to close the streets because you're building a building there and you're going to reroute most of the traffic down there. Shouldn't these things be looked at before you approve the building of a building? It's kind of strange after the fact you come wanting to close the streets and all. But I guess that's the way we do things in Richmond here. You got certain people you got to please, and no matter which way you do it, as long as they get pleased, it's all right. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to any of the papers tonight?
My name is Chris Dorsey. I'm speaking in opposition to a number of papers on the consent agenda. I oppose everything this council does. I'd like to just reiterate what Mr. Hatcher just stated, that you all, as a rule of standard operating procedure, continuously do nothing but put the cart before the horse. Everything's fixed. You take your orders from the Economic Development Authority, which leads me to, I guess, the opposition to ordinance number 2013-131. The Economic Development Authority, as I state every time that the Economic Development Authority starts demanding lots of money or appropriating lots of money on behalf of the citizens of Richmond. They are representatives of the institutions that control the government: Virginia Commonwealth University, the Federal Reserve Bank, Dominion Power. It's a corporate conglomerate that has an arm called the Economic Development Authority that controls everything you do and gives you all orders. About closing roads, I remember last time this happened when they were building the new federal courthouse and the National Theater. The streets were closed down, and it appeared as if it was some sort of migrant work camp, and then there was a raid on the federal courthouse by Homeland Security and ICE. Before they gave these workers their final paycheck, and after they had completed all their work, and they were held in the cells that they helped build. That's the kind of dirty tricks that the leaders of the institutions that control the government do, which leads me to the subject of elections and precincts. And I would just like to say that I hold in my hands evidence that I've shown a number of people here that the last election was fraudulent. There was an investigation by city auditor, Mr. Dalal, that was kiboshed illegally by Alan Jackson, who was the legal counsel for sued parties and parties that were being investigated already by Mr. Dalal. This shows that
please begin.
This is a document showing that, and I've showed Robert Zullo and a number of other people this, that T.G. Epps only had 95 signatures. That completely contradicted the crux of a federal court case. in which Paul Goldman and Joe Morrissey and Tony Troy and others covered up rampant fraud. In Precinct 910, there were 0 votes that were recorded. There were 0 votes that were recorded by the time the tapes were due in Bevel Dean's office. This was reported on by the media, and nothing happened. Our elections are a fraud, and it's spreading into this year's election. This is a memorandum for independent candidates for office. I received that as a candidate, and now that there are tricks being used between Richmond Free Press, the registrar's office, and the current inhabitants of the sheriff's office to run as a Democrat. I must say that I rarely see any of you at the Democratic committee meetings, but I have never seen C.T. Woody at a Democratic committee meeting. These are all just dirty tricks. The elections are a fraud, and a lot of people know it. And thank you very much for your time. You're all being exposed.
Hey, Mr. Dorsey, this is going to be an official warning for you. Anytime under our rules the use of a language of a personal nature which insults or demean a person.
These are facts.
Sir.
These are facts.
This is going to be a warning. The next time I'm going to expel you.
These are facts.
Next
and
speaker,
you have no standing.
Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of council. My name is Duffy Mertitas. I'm here tonight on behalf of James Center Property, LLC, which is the owner of the James Center properties located at 1021 East Carey Street, comprised of the James 1, James 2, and James 3 office towers. This is as to item number 9 on the consent agenda, and James Center Property opposes the adoption of this ordinance and the closure of the right-of-way. If the right-of-way is closed, the traffic patterns that will have to be realigned, the signalization, channelization, and the resulting inconvenience and disruption downtown is simply not in the best interest of the public who work and live in downtown Richmond. In addition, the backdrop to council's consideration of this ordinance is an office market that is currently battered. There is a vacancy rate of approximately 14% that has ranged over the last 6 to 7 quarters between 14 and 18%. Currently, it's approximated there's about 1,000,002 square feet of vacant space, and that's before you consider the square footage that the applicant would like to add on the property that would be developed if the right-of-way is closed, as well as another 150,000 square feet that will come back on the market at Riverfront Tower for property formerly occupied by Wachovia Securities. In short, James Center Property requests that the ordinance not be adopted, as it will cause incredible disruption in an already troubled market. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else to speak in opposition to any of the papers? Seeing none, bring it to those who wish to speak in favor of any of the papers on tonight's consent agenda. Seeing none, bring it back to council for discussion. Seeing none, call the vote, Madam Clerk, please.
Council is voting on the consent agenda item, which consists of item 5 through 9, 13, and 14. Mr. Bliles?
Aye.
Ms. Graziano?
Aye.
Ms. Mosby?
Aye.
Vice President Robertson?
Aye.
Mr. Algelesto?
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Newbill?
Aye.
President Samuels?
Aye.
The consent agenda has been adopted.
Thank you. At this point, are there any expedited resolutions? I don't see.
There are no expedited resolutions for consideration.
Madam Clerk, then, would you please read the minute, or not read the minutes, we'll prepare the minutes for the approval from the previous meeting.
The minutes to be approved are from the Monday, June 24th, informal and formal sessions of council. I will need a motion for the approval of the minutes as read. Ms. Trammell, will you make that motion?
So moved, Madam Clerk.
You're now voting on Ms. Trammell's motion to approve the minutes as presented. Mr. Bliles? Ms. Graziano?
Aye.
Ms. Mosby? Vice President Robertson?
Aye.
Mr. Algelasto?
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert? Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Newbill?
Aye.
And President Samuels.
Aye.
Those minutes have been approved.
Thank you. Reports and announcements by council members. Dr. Newbill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple of updates. I would like to share that the next district Cleanup is scheduled for August 3rd at 7:30 a.m., and that cleanup will run from 7:30 a.m. until 12 noon. Looking for lots of volunteers willing to come out and don your jeans and boots and gloves to help clean up the community, and if you're interested in doing that, please call 646-3012. Again, the 7th District Community Cleanup, August 3rd. The next 7th District Community Meeting is being planned and scheduled for July 30th at 6:30 p.m. at the East District Center located at 701 North 25th Street. So if you would put that on your agenda and plan to attend. The 7th District National Night Out is scheduled for August 6th, and it will be located at the intersection of 9 Mile Road, 25th Street, and Fairmount Avenue. The start time is 5 p.m., and again, this is an opportunity for volunteers to come out and to actively participate. If you're interested in volunteering that day, please call 646-3012. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Newbill. Ms. Trammell.
Thank you, Mr. President. This Monday, July the 15th at 5 p.m., we will be at the Police Academy to have our public safety meeting, and we're going to ask someone from CSX to please be there to speak to us in reference to different things about railroad crossing and some other issues that we're having on the tracks with four-wheelers, three-wheelers, and children riding these vehicles on railroad tracks. So we're asking for someone from CSX to please come to the meeting this Monday, July the 15th. Also, want to have a discussion, and I want to thank Mr. President Charles for mentioning at the last council meeting, it is illegal to fire or discharge firearms in the city of Richmond. And I'm quite sure it's illegal even in surrounding counties to discharge a gun. But anyway, we want to speak about that and also find out what the penalties are if you are caught discharging a firearm in the city of Richmond, and what are the fines, jail time, and all of that. Also, on Thursday, July the 18th, is our next 8th District meeting. That's next Thursday, July the 18th, at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., 4000 block of Jefferson Day, the Satellite Restaurant and Lounge. We're going to be holding our 8th District meeting. Jeffrey Bourne, Director of Governmental Affairs and Policy, he will be attending along with Better Housing Coalition. We're going to talk about building senior cottages in the Blackwell area. And everyone is welcome to come to the meeting. Again, that is next Thursday, July the 18th, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., 4000 block of Jefferson Davis Satellite Restaurant and Lounge. The police department will be there, also the fire department. And let me see, I think, let's see, Cheryl, what's her name, Lou? Cheryl from procurement. They're going to talk about when you, because now it's changed. As of July the 1st, how we get money from council members. Cheryl Wright. She's going to probably be attending our meeting to speak to civic associations, to the presidents, and also vendors that have requested money from council members. It's all changed. I think now it's not going to be handled through our office. It's going to be handled through finance. And I know that there's still some people that have not gotten their money for National Night Out. I believe it's still 3 civic associations. If they would call my home at 233-7382, again, my home number is 233-7382, we'll get them or walk them through the process and give them Ms. Green's number so they can contact her in reference so they can get some money for their National Night Out, because they're in the system and they have it every year. Also, this right here is your free smoke alarm. This is free. Only thing in the city right now that's free. So if you call 646-1526, 646-1526, the firefighters will come to your home or to your apartment or to your business, and they will install it for free. And they will also check your smoke alarm to see if you need a new battery and to make sure that it's working. And if you cannot, if you don't want to call them, you can go to your nearest fire station and speak to one of the firefighters there and make an appointment so they can come out and give you put up one of these smoke alarms. Also, I want to thank the Richmond Police Department and the Richmond Fire Department for working together. In all my years that I've been in the city, we never really thought that the police department and fire department was like sisters and brothers. But I will say this, since this last budget, I can truthfully say those firefighters and men and women and the police department men and women, they work together and helping us by giving us information that helped us to give them the raises and also step increase. So thank you all for what you all do, because I don't think a lot of times we do not thank the firefighters and the police officers for all that they do. So from the bottom of my heart, I say thank you for being out there 24/7, 365 days a year, protecting us and protecting the city of Richmond. And God bless all of you.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Mr. Hilbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next meeting of the Education and Human Services Standing Committee will be held on July the 17th. That's Wednesday, July 17th at 5 p.m. here in council chambers. We'll be discussing the update on the process to purchase computers per our budget amendment. Also, the 3rd District meeting will be held on July the 24th. That's also a Wednesday, 6 p.m. at Pine Camp, 4901 Old Brook Road, next to Henderson Middle School and John Marshall High School as well, just down the block. If your block or neighborhood association plans to host a National Night Out event, make sure to register your event with the Richmond Police Department. You'll find the information and the registration link at www.richmondgov.com/police. And as you've heard, National Night Out will be observed on Tuesday, August the 6th, and we encourage everyone to get out, to know your neighbors, and form a neighborhood watch or any other activity, because we are in this together, and we certainly can make a difference with crime if we look out for one another and not have the attitude that you're on your own. The district also has an email serve that is sent out at least weekly with announcements on district matters as well as various City of Richmond projects. You can be added to this email list by calling Lisa Towns at 646-6055 or emailing her at lisa.towns, Townes, at richmondgov.com. And please know that your email information will be kept confidential. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Hilbert. Mr. Agelasto.
Thank you very much. A few minor announcements, but first I want to thank everybody who came into the district for the fireworks last Wednesday and Thursday nights. I think we had tens of thousands of people into the 5th District for a wonderful display, and it appeared that most people respected our communities when they came in, though I can sympathize with traffic congestion after witnessing that. Tomorrow, I have an opportunity to engage in some regionalism, and I think this is important to recognize what is happening. Last month, I went to Washington, D.C. with a group of leaders from the area to look at bike infrastructure, and it was representatives from Chesterfield, Henrico, Hanover, City of Richmond. It was planning staff, it was elected officials, and I think that was a wonderful opportunity, and I thank sports backers for making that opportunity available so that we could begin to look more comprehensively as a region for biking initiatives. And tomorrow in Chesterfield, at their Pocahontas State Park that was recently dedicated over the weekend, they're going to be talking about some new initiatives for mountain biking, and I think that's a great opportunity to link to the mountain bike trails that we have in the James River Park system, so I look forward to that opportunity. This Thursday, July the 11th at 6 p.m., the Randolph group will be meeting to plan their National Night Out. If you live in the neighborhood, we are looking for volunteers, and I highly encourage you to get out there and become active in your community. Likewise, other neighborhoods from the Carillon over to Hall Street Midlothian Civic Association are planning their National Night Outs. That's August the 6th, and if you haven't gotten involved, please do so. My office is contacting the various civic leaders so that we can help coordinate. We also have a community cleanup this month, Saturday, July the 20th. We're going to be in the Randolph neighborhood. We will be meeting at 9 a.m. That's a Saturday, July the 20th, 9 a.m. at the Randolph Community Center located at 1415 Grayland Avenue, and we're going to be working primarily on the medians at Harrison and Grayland, and would love for all the residents in the neighborhood to come out and help do some beautification in the neighborhood. My final announcement is if you have a pet in the city of Richmond, you need to have your pet registered and licensed. And I think a lot of people overlook that requirement in the city ordinances. And so I just highly encourage everybody to contact Richmond Animal Care and Control and fill out the application. It's pretty simple, and register your pet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Agelasto. Ms. Mosby.
I have two quick announcements. The Midlothian Civic Association meeting will be held tomorrow night at Southside Social Service Building in the Southside Plaza, and that's at 6 p.m. And they're going to be discussing animal control issues. We also have our 9th District meeting July 18th at 6 p.m., and that will be held at Elkhart Middle School, 6300 Hull Street, and we will be discussing drainage issues. So I'm asking that all the residents please come out so that your voice can be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mosby. Ms. Graziano.
And thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to say that not only did you get a great view of the fireworks from the 5th District, but the 4th District, you could see them downtown, the park, and the Diamond all at the same time. So anyway, and not a lot of traffic. So just stick it up with the 4th. And we will have a Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting at 3 o'clock on July 18th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Graziano. Mr. Bliles.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one announcement. I'll be hosting a town hall meeting Tuesday, July 23rd at 6 p.m. at Albert Hill Middle School at 3400 Patterson Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bliles. Vice President Robertson, what have you got for us tonight?
Thank you, Mr. President. This Saturday, July the 13th, from 10 to about 12:30 at the Overby Shepherd Elementary School, which is located at 2300 First Avenue, we'll be having a showcasing of the Holland Park redevelopment community. That will include Holland Grove, which is the new community off of Dove Street. It will also include the Cannon Creek Greenway. We will visit by bus tours throughout the community that would be circulating throughout the community on a half-an-hour schedule. We will visit our recreational centers. There are master plans for the entire redevelopment of the community off of Dove Street, which will include rental housing, workforce housing, single-family housing, as well as the possibility of some housing for seniors. That master plan will be presented by the city staff. We will also have staff from Parks and Recreation to talk about the services that are available currently at the Hotchkiss Center, as well as Ann Hardy, as well as we will be displaying the master plan for the redevelopment of Ann Hardy Park. There will be free giveaways, including bicycles for maybe adults and children, certainly for sure for children. We will also have, working with us in partnership, is the Southside Community Development Corporation and they will be doing a drawing for pre-qualified buyers to support down payment assistance for those that are interested in buying a home. Richmond Public Schools will be there, and we will also be discussing the proposed plans for the redevelopment of the school within this community. So we want to encourage not only the residents of the 6th District, but those persons who are looking for a restored community that's have a lot of new facilities and amenities to bring about quality life, to be a part of this initiative and be engaged in the touring, and also to invite other persons that are looking for a wonderful community to live in and to call home. So that's Saturday, July the 13th, starting at 10 o'clock in the morning. Refreshments will be served by Rubicon, and we will probably wrap it up somewhere around 1 o'clock that day. If you need additional information, you may call my office at 646-7964. In addition to that, on the same day, for those who are interested in going to the Wickham Court community is having a community day on Saturday. Their event will start at 10 as well and go until 2 p.m. There will be health screening, parenting resources, job fair, education opportunities, and other activities for the residents of the Eastview community. And if you need additional information for that as well, you may call 646-4069 or my office at 646-7964. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Vice President Robertson. Anybody forget anything? No? All right. That being the case, Rosedale's community yard sale and Anthem lemonade stand will occur on Saturday, June 20th from 8 a.m. to noon at Christ Ascension Episcopal, which is at 1704 West Laburnum Avenue. I'll bet you a solid amount of donuts that both Mr. Hilber and I will be there. July 14th, the FDA Meadow Park concert, Third Wave, which is surf rock, will be playing from 6 to 8. I've seen them. They do a great job with that. And the Fan District Association's done a wonderful job with their concert series, not just this year, but every year. The National Night Out is coming now. It's time to register. It's Tuesday, August 6th, so just under a month away in the evening. Each event is organized individually by an individual or by a neighborhood. For more information, please contact the Richmond Police Department at 804-646-4069, 646-4069, or you can email Carol Adams at richmondgov.com. That's CAROL.ADAMS at richmondgov.com. To register online, go to richmondgov.com/police. Two other things. Today, I think all council members attended the Redskin training camp grand opening, got to run through the football helmet, and all that was fun. But I think that more important than the enjoyability that we might be able to get there, this is a free event that goes on for 17 days that exposes children to a whole different level of professional sports than we see in Richmond. And I think it's real exciting that they're coming. If you're looking for something that costs you $0, please come down. If you're looking for something that costs you between $5 and $7, please don't park in our neighborhoods, but instead pay for parking and take the shuttle down. It is still dirt cheap, and it is well worth it to keep our neighborhoods happy and clean. Lastly, after you've enjoyed the Redskins practice, you'll have undoubtedly worked up an appetite or a thirst. Although all districts boast wonderful places to go for both, I have to put a plug in for the 2nd District. We have within a half mile some fantastic places, and I encourage everybody, once you're done with the Redskins, to come on out and patronize one of our local retail establishments or restaurants. And lastly, I want to say one final thank you to the members of City Council. I've really been thinking a lot recently about the evolution of City Council over the decades. And it's just amazing to me the kind of feelings we have for each other, where we aren't just fighting personalities. We're not just fighting the people, but we're actually talking about policies, procedures and what's best for Richmond. And that is not only exciting to me, but I think when you talk to people on the street, they feel that excitement as well. And I want to thank each and every one of you for helping make that happen. Having said that, Madam Clerk, would you please read the papers to be introduced?
The introduction papers for this evening are as follows. Ordinance number 2013-144, and that's to amend City Code for the purpose of removing the requirement for City Council approval of the designation of changing the bus routes for the motor bus system and the intra-urban buses. Land Use and Housing Transportation Standing Committee, July 16th at 3 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Ordinance number 2013-145, and that's to authorize the CAO to enter into an agreement between the city and the Economic Development Authority for the purpose of providing for the operation of the Commercial Area Revitalization Efforts Program. Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee, July 18th at 3 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Ordinance number 2013-146, and that's to authorize the CAO to execute an agreement for the purpose of continuing the Economic Development and Housing Revolving Loan Fund Program. Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee, July 18th at 3 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Ordinance number 2013-147, and that's to authorize the CAO to enter into an agreement between the city and the Economic Development Authority for the purpose of continuing the operation of the Extra Commercial Area Revitalization Efforts Program in the Belt Boulevard and the Upper Hull Street Commercial Corridor. Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee, July 18th at 3 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Ordinance number 2013-148, and that's to authorize the CAO to execute an agreement between the city and the Economic Development Authority for the purpose of administering the citywide revolving loan program. Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee, July 18th at 3 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Ordinance number 2013-149, and that's to authorize the CAO to enter into an agreement for the purpose of providing for the Economic Development Authority to serve as the administrative agent of loans made through the Contractor Assistant Loan Program. Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee, July 18th at 3 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Ordinance number 2013-150, to authorize the CAO to execute an agreement for the purpose of continuing the Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund Program. Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee, July 18th at 3 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Ordinance number 2013-151, to authorize the CAO to execute a service agreement with the Columbia Gas Transmission, LLC, to continue providing natural gas peaking service for the Department of Public Utility customers. Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee, July 18th at 3 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Ordinance number 2013-152, to authorize the CAO to accept $195,000 from the Virginia Department of Transportation and to appropriate to the Department of Public Works Commonwealth Gateway Landscape Project for the Boulevard Street Phase 3. Planning Commission, July 15th at 1:30 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Ordinance number 2013-153, to amend the ordinance which authorized the CAO to submit a consolidated action plan to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development as an application for the receipt of $7,397,764 for various projects for the purpose of reappropriating unexpended CDBG funds in a total amount of $1,232,500. Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee, July 18th at 3 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Ordinance number 2013-154, to amend the City Code for the purposes of recognizing same-sex marriages that are lawfully occurred in other states and require that the city extend all the benefits offered to the spouses of city employees in heterosexual marriages. Governmental Operations, July 25th at 5 p.m. Council public hearing date, September 9th, 2013. Ordinance number 2013-155, to authorize the special use of 1210 Hunt Lane Road for the purpose of a day nursery for up to 12 children. Planning Commission, September 3rd at 1:30 p.m. Council public hearing date, September 9th. Ordinance number 2013-156, and that's to authorize the special use of 2501 Monument Avenue for the purpose of a museum for architectural and design and a lodging unit. Planning Commission, September the 3rd, 1:30 p.m. Council public hearing date, September 9th. Ordinance number 2013-157, to accept a deed from the school board conveying 122 West Lee Street to the city and to authorize the CAO to act on behalf of the city. Planning Commission, July 15th at 1:30 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Ordinance number 2013-158, to authorize the CAO to accept $600,000 from the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development for the purpose of facilitating the rehabilitation of the Lee Street Armory at 122 West Lee Street. Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee, July 18th at 3 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Ordinance number 2013-159, to designate 1610 4th Avenue as an official city park named Louise Kane Park. Land Use and Housing Transportation Standing Committee, July 16th at 3 p.m. Education and Human Services Standing Committee, July 17th at 5 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Ordinance number 2013-160, to authorize the CAO to execute a lease for the purpose of providing a site for the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Community Facility Offices and Department Storage at 1209 Admiral Street. Land Use and Housing Transportation Standing Committee, July 16th at 3 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Ordinance number 2013-161, to amend City Code for the purpose of providing that real estate sales tax revenue from former school properties that the city has sold be set aside for the operation of the school board. Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee, July 18th at 3 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Ordinance number 2013-162, to amend the city code by adding therein a new section 42-140 concerning emergency medical services and fire prevention services for special events, to amend Appendix A of the city code for the purpose of imposing a $35 per hour per employee fee for the services at special events, and effective July 1, 2014, increasing the hourly fee from $35 to $45. Public Safety, July 15th at 5 p.m. Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee, July 18th at 3 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Ordinance number 2013-163, to amend Article 1 of the pay plan for the purpose of awarding a one-time increase to eligible city employees during fiscal year 2014. Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee, July 18th at 3 p.m. Governmental Operations, July 25th at 5 p.m. Council public hearing date, September 9th. Ordinance number 2013-164, to declare a surplus and to direct the conveyance of 122 West Lee Street to the Economic Development Authority for nominal consideration for purposes of the development of the property. Planning Commission, July 15th at 1:30 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Ordinance number 2013-165, to authorize the CAO to execute an agreement between the city and the Virginia Department of Transportation for the development and administration of Forest Hill Avenue Improvement Project. Land Use and Housing Transportation Standing Committee, July 16th at 3 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Resolution number 2013-158, to amend the rules of procedure for the purpose of clarifying deadlines required relating to the introduction of legislation. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. Resolution number 2013-159, to approve the Shimarazi International Balakari Program and to authorize $191.90 from the International Excellence in Education Special Services to Richmond Public Schools Education Foundation. Education and Human Services, July 15th at 5 p.m. Council public hearing date, 7/22. Resolution number 2013-160, to request that the mayor identify public and private and public sources of funding for the needed improvements to the Kanawha Plaza Park and to propose the necessary amendments to the capital improvement project plan to establish a project for such improvements so that such improvements will be constructed and completed simultaneously with the construction of the proposed Gateway Plaza public parking garage project. Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee, July 18th at 3 p.m. Council public hearing date, July 22nd. That concludes the reading of this evening's introduction papers.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk, Madam Braxton Clerk. And at this point, unless there's any further business, we will offer our congratulations to Clerk Capel and bring this meeting to a close.
Thank you.
And congratulations from us as well to our new city clerk, Ms. Capel, who had been a city clerk down in Emporia before she came here, and she is now officially the city clerk for the City Council of Richmond. Well, we are a little over 3 hours tonight. Got started a little late because we had a very long pre-meeting or informal meeting. Didn't get started till 4:30 because they were at the Redskins, the opening of the Redskins training facilities today. And so we started at 4:30. There was a lot of talk about the baseball park, and so the meeting ran over until about 5 minutes till 6. So we got started at 6:15, and that was our call to order. Appointments and reappointments, awards and presentations. Got the agenda review. Now, this is the way it went. The two papers concerning the ballpark, the referendum and the location situation, were originally going to be stricken. However, Councilman Hilbert moved to override the committee recommendation that they be stricken so that there could be a public hearing on both papers. So both papers were back on the regular agenda. We had about an hour and 35 minutes of discussion from the people here in attendance. We had 7 speaking against the referendum and 11 in favor. But when all was said and done, when they took the final vote, both papers were defeated 3-6. The 3 votes coming from Councilmembers Agelasto, Trammell, and Samuels. So there will not be a referendum in November on the ballpark, and there will not be saying you can only put it here. Then we got to amendments, got the citizens' comment period, consent agenda, took only about 10 minutes. The reports and minutes from the council, and the introduction of papers, and now we are done. So we have 1 meeting left before the August break. So that'll be 2 weeks from tonight, July 22nd. So we look forward to seeing you at that time. For Gavel to Gavel, I'm Dick Harmon saying good night.